Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're here. We made it through part 1 of season 3 of Attack on Titan. It's the recap, review, and RIP my sanity. Because let me tell y'all, back when I was starting season 3, I was like, man, 22 episodes. It's going to be, I did a 3-hour recap with 12 episodes for season 2, and we got 22 episodes for this. And then as soon as I got through episode 1, everyone on YouTube and Patreon were like, you need to split the recap. And I was like, that should have been foreshadowing at that point when y'all were telling me that the recap was going to need to be in 2 parts. I was like, oh, well, y'all are just saying that because this first chunk of episodes is its own arc and the second chunk of episodes is its own arc too. That's all. That's the only reason why. And as I'm compiling my notes for this recap video that I'm starting like at 7 o'clock at night, as I'm recording this, season 1's recap review and RIP was 5 pages of notes. Season 2 was 9 pages of notes. And right now I'm at 13 pages. So strap in, y'all. I've got my toasts ready. I've got Whiteboard-kun is primed and ready to go. I'm set to talk about season 3 because holy crap, I started making notes like a week ago because as soon as I hit episode like 8 or 9, I was like, oh, I need to start now. Because it's been a season. Holy crap. Remember when this was a shonen? Remember when Titans were our biggest threat? Remember when things were simple and clean? Those were fun times. The worst part is that the weird pianist was noting on Twitter, I had a picture of Whiteboard-kun with all of his writings on it, and all the weird pianist said was, well, this has all been set up for part 2 in season 4. Have fun. And it does feel like, with the end of episode 12, this does feel like everything's been set up. Everything's on the table. And now that Erwin is leading us on our final mission to Wall Maria, I don't like the way he phrased that. Final mission. It's all downhill from here. And here we are, y'all. So buckle in. We are going to do a recap of the plot, expectations and theories, themes that stood out and resonated, ranking the episodes, the ships. We're going to talk about characters, and we'll get to character rankings. Who's safe? And then season 3 part 2 predictions and questions that are still unanswered, because even though we learned a lot in this season, there are still questions unanswered. And I have been going in blind to this series. I've made it up to season 3 part 2 without being spoiled, y'all. Thank you so much. Because this season I was worried about it the most. I started recording ahead, and I'll probably do that for this second part too, because I was terrified that I was going to get spoiled and it was going to ruin the enjoyment. Didn't happen, but I'm probably going to have to record ahead because I have a feeling that, as you all know, my recap for episode 12 of this season was 2 hours long. I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to need to record ahead as diligently as I can. But yeah, we're at the point of no return. The rule of 6 applies to Attack on Titan. The rule of 6. Every episode 6 of each season is like a point of no return. You either take the red pill or the blue pill. You either go back to reality or you keep on trucking through. Episode 6 of season 1, The Girl Who Saw the World. Episode 6 of season 2, Warrior. Episode 6 of part 1 was Sin. And I'm going to tell y'all, I feel a little bit spoiled because everybody's been like, episode 18. And that's the 6th episode of part 2. And I'm like, So don't spoil me about anything. I don't know nothing about episode 18. I want to know nothing about episode 18 because I want to go in completely blind as I can. But I just have that foresight that it's going to be crazy. So anyway, season 1 ended with despair and confusion and chaos, as we didn't exactly know what was going to happen, but it was leading right into season 2. Season 2 had a nice definitive ending with hope and resolve. And season 3 part 1, it ends with us being at this really interesting place because for Eren, and we'll talk about Eren in this video, for Eren, he has resolve. I feel like Eren is at his best point right now. He's at his most definitive, highest point right now, Eren is as a character. But the entire season finale of the mid-season finale felt so ominous that I was terrified. I was like, oh, it's all... I feel like Eren's this little ray of sunshine and sunlight that's like cascading into a pit of darkness. That's what I feel like. And I'm like, is Aaron going to be able to come out on the other side unscathed? And I think the answer is going to be no. But for now, Aaron's in a great place. So we're going to talk about Aaron. We're going to talk about characters. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But as we talk about these things, you know what else we're going to do? We are going to do toasts. We're only 5 minutes into this video, and we're going to do our first toast of the evening. And I've brought my little skull, colossal titan looking glass to measure out our toasts, because that seems legit, right? So our first toast of the evening is going to be, we've got 3 in this one. We've got old Pastor Nick. We got to talk about Pastor Nick. I did not expect Pastor Nick to die in episode 1. What the heck? I thought Pastor Nick was going to be this character that was going to be a big prominent part of this season. I expected him to be like our exposition no jutsu, to give us all the info about the walls, which we honestly got very little about the walls this part 1 of season 3. I have a feeling it's all going to come out later in the wash, but it's suspicious of Isayama, who has played up the walls the last 2 seasons, and then suddenly he throws the Kinney Squad in as a curveball, and the military police and Rod Reese is in as a curveball, to make us, as the audience, kind of forget about the walls. I've not forgotten, but I expected Pastor Nick to be the one to give us the info about the old walls, and it did not happen. I feel like Pastor Nick's death was Isayama reminding us that anything can happen. And so I will miss Pastor Nick. In season 2, when it started, I thought he was kind of this lowly character that I didn't... Again, we'll talk about this, but Isayama likes to give you an impression of a character and then completely do a 180. And by the end of his death and his life, as season 3 started, I realized that Pastor Nick, he was a man that stuck by his principles till the bitter end. So, Pastor Nick, we wish you had been here longer so you could have gave us some answers, but our first toast is to him. Oh, that's good. Our second toast of the evening, I'm gonna save on a beverage. Our second toast of the evening is going to go to both Nifa and Abel. Nifa and Abel, they were the Survey Corps members from Hanji's group that sadly died to the Kinney Squad. Nifa got neefed in the face by Kinney 5 minutes to the conclusion of episode 1, and Abel got taken out from the rooftop by one of Kinney's squad members. But man, of course, Nifa has a really cool design and has a cool character motif, and she's gone within an episode. And Abel, our Glasses No Kun character, he was gone as well. So they were kind of like the Gelger and Nanaba we didn't know. Sad days. So we give a toast to Nifa, to Abel. R.I.P. friends. Nom. So, recap of the plot. What the heck is happening? I feel like I've got Whiteboard-kun primed and ready to go. We're going to bring Whiteboard-kun out at some point, but we need to talk about this. So we learned a lot in this season. A lot about Titans, about the royal family. We didn't learn enough about the Titans, in my opinion, but I feel like that's going to be part 2. That's going to be part 2. That's going to be season 4. I feel like Isayama, the Titans are omnipotent beings that are the end-all be-all in this series, and they're meant to be the most mysterious. The Titans are meant to be the most mysterious characters, and so I feel like, especially knowing that season 4 part 2 is the ending of the series, unless they make a movie or something to round out the series. I've heard rumors about that, but we know that the end is going to be at season 4 or a movie right after it. So we're over the halfway point. We're getting into the final third of the series. You save your biggest things to explain for last, and the Titans are that. So I feel like we're going to get some answers in part 2 probably, but I was honestly expecting more in part 1 than we got, but we still got a lot, so we need to talk about it. So there are pure Titans. We found out the putty Titans, they are technically pure Titans. They are seemingly created from a Titan serum. We're going to talk about that. Some may be naturally created, the Titan shifters. We don't know exactly the distinction of how a Titan... We know a Titan shifter comes from eating another Titan shifter, but we don't exactly know the origins of the Titan shifters. And that, I feel, is going to be the answers that lie either within the basement or with the Beast Titan. Because the Beast Titan seems to be the ringleader with Bertolt and Reiner and Ymir. The Beast Titan's in charge. And so I feel like the Beast Titan knows more than Reiner and Bertolt. And if he doesn't know, then the information in the basement is going to be key to finding out the origins of all of this. And so that's what Erwin wants. He wants to bust that basement wide open, get to the truth, and figure out what the origins of this whole Titan deal is. And I feel like we're going to get that in part 2. And if not, we're going to get that in season 4 at some point. So we know that the Beast Titan has made Connie's village into Titans. Now, whether or not the Beast Titan has an ability that can naturally do that, or the fact that Beast Titan had a bunch of serum on him and just injected everybody in the village, or, made him swallow it or eat it or whatever. It came in contact with their skin or a cut on their skin and entered their bloodstream somehow. We know that they've been able to turn them in. So the question remains of if the Beast Titan had access to the serum. I think the serum came from the other side of the walls, not from within the walls itself, but that's just my theory. And we'll see how that goes. But we know that there are pure Titans. We know that there are Titan shifters who are pure Titans who have ate another Titan shifter and gained their power and inherited the power that they have. And we'll talk about the Titan serum on Whiteboard-kun when we get to it. But we know that there's those two distinctions, right? We have our intelligent Titan shifters who have the ability to turn back into humans, and we have the pure Titans who are just dumb but seemingly immortal. So there's a nice contrast there. You can be intelligent and all powerful, but there's a limit to your lifespan, apparently. Or you can be dumb and immortal. Pick your poison. And be in a nightmare state for the rest of your existence. So it's not exactly you may be dumb and immortal, but you're also in a nightmarish existence. So fun times. We do know that one of the Titan shifters is known as the Founding Titan or the Coordinate. The Titan shifters call them the Coordinate. Humanity calls them the Founding Titan. So there is a distinction there. And they are the emblem of the royal family and their power. And the King's Will, as it's called, has the power to erase human memory, and it's been passed down from generation to generation through various vessels. And the Reese, aka the Fritz family, has had this power until Grisha took it and then gave it to Aaron. So Grisha did say that the serum he gave Aaron was going to mess with his memories. So there's that, and that ended up being true. So the question is, was it the serum like Grisha said, or was it because Aaron was inheriting the memories of both Grisha and Frida that it was messing with his memories? Grisha is a little bit of a mystery still, and we'll talk about Grisha, but he is still a little bit of a mystery. But there is that question of the serum. Did it alter Aaron's memories, or was it really Aaron inheriting the coordinate powers that altered them? I don't know. So yeah, was the serum that Aaron gave different than the others? We'll talk about that as well. So supposedly, unless a Fritz or a Reese, we think that the Reese family's name is just a cover. They're actually the Fritzes, but I'm going to keep calling them the Reeses because the show keeps calling them the Reeses. Once they gain the Founding Titan's powers, they have to be a Reese to gain the Titan powers from the Founding Titan. Otherwise, it will be incomplete and they won't be able to control humanity like they're supposed to. But we've seen Aaron use this power and he could control Titans. So the question remains, we assume that is the Coordinates powers. So then how is that possible? If Aaron is not a Reese family member, how is it possible he could control the Titans and use the Coordinates powers if supposedly that can't happen? That's another question we have to think about. And then supposedly certain bloodlines we found out are immune to the Founding Titans' abilities, including the Ackermans and the Eastern Clan. For all we know, the only Eastern Clan member left alive in existence is Mikasa, and she's also an Ackerman. And the only two Ackermans we know of are Levi and Mikasa. So seemingly the only people that cannot be controlled by the royal family or the Founding Titan are Levi and Mikasa. And Mikasa just happens to be super devoted and loyal to Aaron, who has the coordinate powers. Funny that. And we'll talk about the comparisons of Mikasa and Aaron to Uri and Kenny, to Levi to Kenny, all that good stuff. So we also have to talk about the family of the church. The family of the church is known by the warrior crew, which is Reiner and Bertolt and the Beast Titan. The family of the church is known by both humanity and the warrior crew, and they seem to know about the mysteries within the walls, or they have lots of sneaking suspicions, right? So they're an interesting... I kept thinking we'd get more with the family of the church in this season because they were hinted at in season 1, and then they were kind of talked up a little bit by Pastor Nick in season 2, so I thought, okay, we're going to go into season 3 and get more with the family of the church. We really don't. We don't get a lot about them, so I'm assuming that maybe is going to come up later on in season 3 or season 4, but we don't get a lot about them other than that they are super devoted to the king and the idea of keeping the walls preserved to keep the peace, right? So from season 2, we had the questions about the spiritual elements of the series. We did not get any discussion so far about the Aurora Borealis, about the Northern Lights deity. We've had none of that come up. And I find that suspicious. I feel like Isayama with season 3, part 1, was saying, hey, that stuff I kind of introduced in season 2, just keep it on the back burner, just remember it. But we're going to like detour over here for a while before we come back to that. So I'm keeping it in the back of my mind, that old Aurora Borealis deity. I'm keeping her in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, the supernatural thing we did get is that with the power of the Titans, while it seems to be like a God-given gift, what is the cost? Is the cost that you age quickly and that your lifespan is limited? Because that seemed to be the case with Uri. Uri lived through their life rather quickly, and then his power was passed on to Frida. So Reiner has made the comment that they're murderers with a short time left on Earth, so they seem to be privy about what's going on. So Ymir seems to be privy about what's going on, because she said at the end of season 2 that she wanted to spend the rest of her life atoning for, taking that power. So she's like, it was fun being a goddess while it lasted. So I don't know. I feel like that's going to come up in season 3, part 2. That whole element. And then, we learned about Kenny Ackerman being enlisted by Uri, Fritz, or Reese, later by Rod Reese, creating the Anti-Personnel Squad. They were a fun antagonistic group that were introduced, and now they're all dead. So there's that. The new cadets of the 104th Training Regiment have now become the new Levi Squad. The old Levi Squad fared well, so these guys should have no trouble at all, right? And we're going to talk about that, of characters I think are safe and are not safe. And then we got reintroduced back to Zachary from season 1. There were a lot of season 1 callbacks in this part. And I feel like Isayama was showing us, the audience, to trust him. He's saying, look, this stuff back in season 1, my dog is asleep in the corner over there. There he is. Sorry. He was saying in season 1 that, you know what, trust me. I know what I'm doing. And now he's moved because Huck's like, no. So Isayama was saying in season 1, you need to trust me. I know what I'm doing. In season 3, he was reminding us that, I have a plan. I've planned this all from the beginning. Everything has come full circle from season 1 to the end of part 1 of season 3. And now it was all set up. And now we're going to see the payoff in part 2 in season 4. So that's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited by that. I'm not going to lie. Because if you think about it, season 3, part 2 is 10 episodes. But part 1 of season 4 is 16 episodes. So it's kind of like we're getting 2 season 2s together, which is crazy, right? I'm really excited. But so we got Zachary coming back into the picture. Pixis came back to full power. We had a freaking coup d'etat. We overthrew the government in like 2 episodes. Erwin was saved. Erwin, we're talking about him too. But now we have a complete overthrow of the government. Historia is going to be queen. It's been a crazy season, to say the least. And she killed Rod Reese. Aaron, who believed himself to be useless, is now humanity's ace. It's been a crazy, crazy part 1 of season. In 12 episodes, we've had so much happen. I would argue we've had as much plot happen in 12 episodes, exposition-wise and narrative-wise, as we've had in both season 1 and season 2. Season 1 was a lot of action, and season 2 was a lot of character development, and season 3, part 1 was kind of putting that all together and giving us more lore and history as well. So I'm pretty excited for season 3, part 2 and season 4. I'm terrified beyond all rational belief, but I'm pretty excited too. So before we go any further though, I have on my notes here that we need to bring out Whiteboard-kun and we need to talk about the timeline. So I have my notes on here. I have a bunch of notes going back before we hit the actual timeline of the show. I've got a lot of notes. We have our royal family, right? We have the Fritz family, technically the Reeses. We have the founding Titan, aka the Coordinate, had this big plan, according to Rod Reese, to let the Titans rule over humanity, and that we weren't going to kill the Titans. We weren't going to destroy them. We were just going to stay within our walls. They were going to stay outside as a threat, and then they were basically creating this own little kingdom where the Fritz family would basically rule over everybody and create this paradise, supposedly. Or at least that was Uri's plan. Uri wanted to create a paradise while he was in control of the Coordinate powers. But pretty much anybody that inherits the founding Titan powers becomes basically a pacifist. They don't want to do anything bad to the Titans. They just want to let them rule, have their way. And so they call it the King's Will. And pretty much if you inherit this power as a Reese member, any desire you have towards liberating humanity is just nixed. So Rod Reese has Frida. Frida inherits the power from her uncle Uri, and then Frida is eaten by Grisha Jaeger, who in turn passes on that power to his son Aaron, who eats Grisha. It's lovely, right? And so Historia was supposed to eat Aaron, but that didn't happen. Instead, Historia killed Rod. So now Historia is the only Reese/Fritz family member left, unless she has her own kid. She is the last of that bloodline. So technically, the founding titan shifter, that person, their bloodline will die out with Historia, supposedly, unless there's some secret Fritz people we don't know about that the Beast Titan's keeping hidden. We don't know. We do know that the Beast Titan wants Aaron, so we can assume that perhaps the Beast Titan has somebody in mind to take the coordinate powers from Aaron. It may even be the Beast Titan. The Beast Titan may want the coordinate powers for himself so that he can become the founding Titan. We don't know. I don't know how that will work, because technically, unless the Beast Titan or whoever takes Aaron's powers is a Reese or a Fritz, then they're not going to have the same King's Will issue going on. Unless that's what the Beast Titan wants. They don't want the King's Will to come into play. They just want to completely nix that from the equation. So along with the royal family, we have the idea that there are noble family bloodlines that are not impacted by their ability to alter memories. And two of those bloodlines are the Ackermans and the Eastern clan, which, like I said, the last ones, we had Kutchel, we had Kenny's grandfather, but now it's just Levi and Mikasa. So the thing about the serum, I want to talk about that real quick, because we've had discussion on YouTube about this, and some people have been like, well, there's really only one serum and it just turns you into a pure Titan. And I'm like, well, then why was there a bottle that said armor on it? So there's been talk in the comments about maybe it's like an enhancement. Maybe the armor is like an enhancement to the serum. It's not technically a type of serum. It's just an enhancement of it. So like if you turn into a Titan, you can maybe create the armor or be an abnormal or something. But unless you eat a Titan shifter, you're not going to be technically an armored Titan. And so the only Titan serum that we technically know about is the kind that creates the pure Titans and this armor. So we don't know. It's speculated that the Titan serum that Rod took may have been infused with some kind of enhancement like the Colossal Titan, because he does become huge rather than just like a 12-meter Titan, but we don't know that for sure. There are still questions with the serum, and I know some of you are manga readers or you've watched season 4 and season 3 and you're like, well, and I'm like, don't tell me. Just let me figure it out, right? So then we do have these Titan shifters that we know of. We know Grisha Jaeger was a Titan shifter. He apparently supposedly has no memory of what his life was like. We don't know if that's the truth or not. Did Grisha Jaeger really lose his memories, or is he faking it? We don't know for sure. But we do know he was a Titan shifter, and he remembered that he was a doctor. That's all we know. We know the Beast Titan exists, the Colossal Titan, the Armored Titan, the Female Titan, whatever Marcel and Ymir are, and then the Coordinate, which is Aaron. So, and Aaron has the power of the Coordinate and whatever Grisha was. So right now, to our knowledge, we only have 6 Titans in existence. 6 Titan shifters that we know of are in existence. That's all we've got right now. There were 7 that we know of, but now there's just 6. And so I put up here the geography of the wall. This has kind of been where we've been at so far. We started out at the very beginning at Shiganshina in Wall Maria, and then we moved north to Trost of Wall Rose. We have where Sasha and Connie's village are. Then we moved up to Stohest, which is on the eastern side of Walsina. We moved to Orvud and Mitras, and then obviously, and I think Orvud is on the north side of Mitras, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I just put Orvud there. But we've been at these locations, but now we are back. We are back down, headed towards Wall Maria. That's where we're headed to right now, right? So, and on the other side of Wall Maria, where Shiganshina is, we know is the Beast Titans and the Warrior Crew. So yeah, I do want to make a note. I do want to make a note that at the end of episode 12 of part 1, Brady's like, play with me. At the end of part 1, I do want to make a note that I thought that it was like a new character coming into the series, that it was like Marcel's brother or a new Titan shifter. But I was told through Twitter when I was talking about it in relation to what was on this board, they were like, oh, that was Bertolt. His hair was just pushed back by the wind. I'm like, well, he looks like a totally different character. So if you watched episode 12, I put a note in the description being like, just ignore my 10 minutes of tinfoil hat theorizing. Just ignore that. And just act like it was Bertolt all along, and I knew that. So as far as the timeline goes, When this series started, all we really knew was that 107 years ago, the wall had been created. And we knew that in the year 845, Shiga and Sheena fell. And then 3 years later, and then 5 years later, Aaron and Mikasa and Armin and the other cadets graduated from the Survey Corps training and were going to become Survey Corps members. And that's when the Battle of Trost happened, the Battle of Stowe has happened, and within a few weeks, Season 2 was happening. And Season 2 happened over the course of 2 days. So the timeline was relatively simple, right? I would argue the timeline stayed pretty simple since then. So we've gone from basically 3 events in Season 1 and Season 2 to an entire timeline that has formed in this season. So I want to walk you all through it real quick. So 107 years ago, we don't know what happened before then. All we know is that the coordinate knows what's happened before 107 years ago. We don't know. Only the coordinate does. We do know that the walls were founded 107 years ago. And then for 47 years, nothing really happened. We know, well, nothing that we know of really happened. There could have been a whole bunch of stuff go down, but we don't know that yet. We know that for 47 years, the founding Titan ruled, supposedly, probably had a family, probably had a child that inherited the powers, could have been the 3 daughters, we don't know. That noble bloodlines were excluded from memories being altered, and that the Ackermans were the sword of the king. For 47 years, that's all we know. But 60 years ago, Ymir was tried to be passed off as a child of the king, and her and the other followers of that cult that she was in were turned into Titans. And she was like released beyond the walls. So that was 40 years ago. Somewhere between 40 and 60 years ago, we know that the Ackermans and the Eastern clan deserted from the king because it had to have been before Kinney was born, I'm assuming. I'm assuming it was before Kinney was born. So between 40 and 60 years ago, or if Kinney was a child when it happened, the Ackermans and the Eastern clan deserted, right? Around 40 years ago, we know that Rod Reese, based on how old Rod Reese is in the series, we know about 40-ish years ago, Rod Reese tried to convince his father to spare the Titans, to spare humanity, and he wouldn't do it. And Uri becomes the founding Titan around 40-ish years ago. Around 10 years later, around 30-ish years ago, we know that Kinney confronts his grandpa about the Ackermans. We know that Kutchel has Levi. We know that Uri meets Kinney around that time. And around that same time, Erwin's father probably dies. So a lot of stuff happens about 30 years ago. There's like a period of every 10 years at this point, and the timeline gets smaller and smaller, more condensed the further we go. But about 30 years ago, we have that happening. 20 years ago, this is where the timeline gets kind of crazy. 20 years ago, Kutchel dies, Levi is found by Kinney, and around that same time, if you think about it, Keith was meeting Grisha Yeager. So around the time that Kutchel died and Kinney met Levi, Keith was meeting Grisha Yeager around the same time. Then, 5 years later, Mikasa, Aaron, and Armin and Historia are all born around that time. And it's probably around that same time that Kinney left Levi. So crazy, because I'm assuming Levi was probably around 15 when that happened, which would have been around the time that Aaron was born, right? Then, about 7 years later, from that, you have Uri dying, passing the powers on to Frida. Levi and No Regrets happens around the same time. And around the time that Uri dies, Keith leaves the Survey Corps around that time because Aaron would have been a couple years old as a baby. So the timeline checks out there. And the anti-reconnaissance push was happening. So things are really setting into motion. Once Aaron's born, things are really setting into motion. So all that stuff happens around 8 years ago. Then, around a few years later, the incidents of Ilse's notebook happen, and Erwin creates the flares and the technology for trying to battle the Titans. So all this is happening in a very short span, right? Then, a couple years after that, our main conflict happens. Ymir eats Marcel, while Bertolt, Reiner, and Annie are attacking right before Shiga and Sheena. Grisha eats Frida. Aaron eats Grisha. Rod's family dies. Alma dies. Historia is spared. And Keith helps to get Aaron back to Mikasa and Armin. All like within a few days of each other, right? Then, between 5 and 3 years ago, Armin's grandpa dies, and they have the whole thing where they send everybody outside the walls to try to reclaim everything. Like a third of the population dies, or a fifth of the population dies. And then 3 years prior, Aaron, Mikasa, and Armin join the cadets, where Keith is working, right? So then, we cut to and around that time, 3 years ago, Around that same time that Aaron and them are joining the cadets, Kenny starts the anti-personnel squad. All around the same time. So lots of coincidences and things that are all lining up in this timeline that are pretty crazy. So then we cut to 4 months ago, where all this craziness really begins. 4 months ago, around the events of episode 5 of season 1, 4 months ago, we have our cadets graduating, the Battle of Trost, Stowe S's battle with Annie in a matter of days. All of the Levi Squad dies. All this happens within a matter of days 4 months ago. About 3.9 months ago, within like the next week, the events of season 2 happen. The Beast Titan makes an appearance in Connie's village and turns them all into Titans. Reiner and Bertolt and Ymir are all revealed to be Titans. Aaron obtains the power of the coordinate. Aaron's powers activate once Hannes dies. Others die. Erwin loses his arm. All that happens within the span of a couple days. Then, 2 to 3 months ago, or about a month later, Aaron and Historia are kidnapped. Rod Reese becomes the king/turkey titan and attacks Orvud. Historia kills Rod Reese. Kenny dies and gives Levi the last of the serum that we know of. Historia is crowned queen. Erwin does a coup d'etat and takes over the government. The anti-personnel squad are all killed. The government is overthrown. Flegel helps and the Survey Corps and gets the truth out to the entire population. The Beast Titan is training with Reiner and Bertolt. All that's going on. And then where our season ends, our mid-season concludes in the present time, and it's a little bit hard to see, but where our series concludes at, our mid-season finale concludes at, is we have Aaron and Erwin and the Survey Corps. They're going to reclaim Wall Maria one more time. Levi has the serum. We get Keith's backstory. We get Kenny's backstory. Historia stays behind. And I put on here Reiner is on the wall with a new person, but we know it's actually Bertolt. It's just the animation team decided to push his hair back and make him look like a completely different person. But yeah, so as you can see, a very easy, straightforward timeline that is easy for anyone to understand. And all you had to do was watch 12 episodes of the show to get all this information. Fun times. So yeah. Very easy, straightforward timeline, super easy to understand, totally cohesive. My dog wasn't at all trying to get me to play with him throughout that entire video segment. Not at all. All right, so our next toast. Toast number 2. We're going to salute both, we got 3 people we're going to salute, but our first toast is going to be for Keiji of the Survey Corps and Duran from the Kenny Squad. They were 2 members that we know of that died that had names. I don't know much about them other than they were like the drivers of the cab. And unfortunately, we don't know the name of the girl that Armin shot, but we'll include her in this too. So cheers to y'all. We knew your names, but we didn't know enough about you. And our other toast in this is going to be to sweet, sweet Demo Reeves. Demo Reeves, I didn't like your character at all back in season 1, episode 5 and episode 6, but you know what? You turned out in the end to be not a bad character, and your son Flegel turned out to be even better. So thanks for using your nose, for agreeing to help with Levi and all them. We salute you, sir. R.I.P. Demo. Demo Reeves. R.I.P. indeed. All right. So we have to talk about expectations, surprises, and questions that were answered and unanswered. The world got bigger and more complicated than I could have imagined. I said that in season 2, but in season 2, I was a sweet summer child. I was like, oh, this is getting complicated, and y'all were like, and season 3 proved y'all right, because oh my God, there was so much that went down in season 3. So much. So let's talk about expectations first. I thought that we would get to the basement, or at least by the end of this mid-season, back to Shiganshina. I really did. I had all these expectations. I really want to get to that damn basement. And I know that we're probably finally going to get to it in part 2. But I've been waiting to get to that basement since season 1. And now I'm like, okay, we're finally going to get there. But like I said in the recap, like I said in the discussion for episode 12, I'm glad that we've taken all this time to get there because we had so much information we needed to learn before going all that way. And I kept thinking we were going to have a reconnaissance mission to take over Wall Maria again, and we're finally getting there. Things just kept getting in the way, especially once the Kenny Squad showed up in episode 1. I was like, oh, we're not going to the basement for a while. I thought that we'd have, in this part 1 of season 3, Reiner and Bertolt planning an attack on Walrose because they seem pretty adamant to go back and get Annie. And as we saw by the end of episode 11, yeah, they were pretty adamant about it. But the Beast Titan was like, no, not yet. We're going to have them come to us. And it's like, oh no. So the Beast Titan is cautious. That's good to know. The Beast Titan is cautious and wants Aaron to come to them, and then they'll go back and get Annie. So I'm curious. The Beast Titan seems super powerful, though. Like, it could take out Reiner like it was nothing. So if the Beast Titan is so powerful, then why is he so cautious? That's the question. The Beast Titan seems really powerful, so why are they cautious? Maybe the Beast Titan is kind of like Bertolt, and they don't want to exert all this power because the Beast Titan hasn't really ran or done anything crazy yet. They just kind of lumbered about and then, had other Titans do the work for him. So, interesting. I thought we'd get some focus on Annie, but that girl's been absent for nearly 2 seasons. I really like Annie's character. I like her character a lot. But we haven't seen her since episode 25 of season 1. We haven't seen her at all in 2 seasons so far. So I don't know if we're ever going to go back to Annie. I don't. Don't spoil me, but I was like, man, I really thought we'd get some focus on her, even if it was like a passing glance at her in her little prison. I thought in her little glass Titan skin prison, I thought we'd at least see an image of her, but we've got nothing. So I'm like, I don't even know who's watching her at this point. Like, who's guarding Annie? Like, is anybody guarding Annie? I don't know. We did get more Levi focus, which I was happy about. I'd wanted that from season 2. I wanted more Levi focus, and we got it. I also expected more Pastor Nick, like he'd reveal things, not die in the first episode, but there we go. We did get more Levi and Erwin focus, as I'd wanted back in season 2, but they weren't together. They were separate backstories, and their backstories proved to be quite different, which was really cool because the OP kind of shows them crossing paths, and it was more metaphorical than anything. Like, they didn't actually see each other on the streets like I thought would maybe happen in this part of the season, but it was more metaphorical. Like, they were both, Erwin coming from this educated, well-to-do background where he had like the little bolo and the nice clothes, and his dad, he had a really good relationship with his parent, and losing that parent kind of spurned him forward. Levi was the total opposite. Levi grew up in the slums. His mom was basically a prostitute, and she died, and he didn't have an upbringing except with Kenny, and Kenny wasn't really a parent. Kenny just showed him how to use a knife and kill people and then left. So Levi and Erwin's backstories are so different, but they both ended up together and respecting and caring about each other to an insane degree. It's kind of like when Uri says, I believed in the miracle that happened. And a lot of you were talking about this in episode 10, that the miracle was Uri becoming friends with Kenny. That's kind of what happened with Levi and Erwin. Levi and Erwin's friendship is kind of a miracle because they're 2 characters that come from such starkly different backgrounds and walks of life that under normal circumstances, they would not only never meet each other, but never work together. And through an act of violence, through Levi and No Regrets being hired to assassinate Erwin and it going awry, through that act of violence, they met each other and formed this relationship. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of another example of the miracle that Uri was talking about, which is interesting because Kenny and Levi are related. So there's that. We did get more focus on the military police, the inner police, and the anti-personnel squad. We got much more into them and what they're like. I finally figuring out that the military police, they are not like the Black Lizard from Bungo Stray Dogs. They are actually a threat. They are not just Team Rocket. They actually have a presence and a threat level to them, which is good to know. We also got more Marlo and Hitch. I didn't know if we'd ever see them after season 1 again. We got Marlo and Hitch this season, and they had an actual part to play in the story. Episode 4 was all about them joining up with the Survey Corps and helping Levi and the crew. There were great moments between Jean and Marlo and Hitch, connecting Marlo and Hitch to Aaron. Then we got to see Marlo joining the Survey Corps at the end, and he's going to be with the squad. I'm worried about Marlo, but you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we talk about characters. But yeah, I was amazed we got to see them. I was expecting character death. It was a thing. A lot of it was in flashbacks, but we did have characters die. Things were not, I liked that this series proved that things were not all sunshine and rainbows before Shiganshina fell. Because at the beginning of the series, when Mikasa and Eren and Armin are children, they kind of make it out to seem like, yeah, there's some problems, but things are for the most part really good. We learned in this season, part 1, no, things were not good. People were getting silenced, people were dying, people were struggling a lot. And it wasn't because of the Titan shifters, it was because of humanity itself and the circumstances of staying within the walls. So it was good that we got that understanding that no, things weren't perfectly peaceful before Shiga and Sheena fell. Shiga and Sheena falling was just the domino that started the chain reaction, right? And I think that's pretty important to note. Season 1 and 2, I wanted to learn more about Titan lore. We still know so much, but there's still lots of questions. I still know so little. I feel like we've been slowly getting every other aspect of the story except for the center focus on the Titans, because Isayama wants to save that for last. And I don't blame him. That's your big reveal, right? Of course you don't want to give it away now, so I don't blame him. But we still are learning things about the Titans, but we learned a lot in this part of season 3. Armin and Jean, I wanted them back together again. We got them together a lot this season. It made up for lost time in season 2. Episode 1 and 2 was pretty much Jean and Armin focus and how they react to having to kill humans. So the Levi Squad itself was pretty much all together, except they were a little bit separated in episode 8 when Armin went and helped Moblit get Hanji out. But for the most part, they were together this entire season, which I had wanted them to be the entire time. Mikasa is still protecting Eren, but kind of backs off a little bit. We'll talk about that. But Mikasa's hardcore about protecting Eren, but with Levi's encouragement, Mikasa kind of backs off a little bit. I was worried coming out of season 2 because Mikasa, like, they nearly died, and Mikasa was like, this is the end, Eren, I'm going to confess right now to you before we die, and then they didn't. And so I wondered if Mikasa would be super clingy to Eren, but she really didn't have the chance to be, because Eren was either kidnapped or once they got out, it seemed like she backed off just a little bit. And we'll talk about that with Eren and when we get down to ships. So Mikasa also got the chance to protect Historia as well. These Ackermans, they really like protecting people. Just a bit, and we'll talk about that. But we got politics and royal family. Season 2 didn't talk about the political royal family angle at all. And I was like, man, I want to learn about the royal family. We learned about him in this season. So we got a lot of that. We finally get that all discussed. And I have been wanting Carla and Grisha flashbacks since season 1. And we not only got flashbacks, we got their origin story. We got them getting married, having Eren. Episode 11 was just brilliant. I just really loved episode 11, and we'll talk about it. But finally, getting the backstory, and finally we are headed to the basement. But you know what? For all I have bitched and moaned about going to the basement and why aren't we there yet, I'm not as excited now. Because I know that the Beast Titan and Reiner and Bertolt are waiting for them, and they're going into Titan territory, and it's all ominous, and I get bad vibes, and I'm like, I've waited this entire... Isayama is such a cruel mangaka, because he's like, oh, you've waited this whole time to get to the basement? That's great. We're going to go to the basement like you want, but now all these other roadblocks are in your way. I hope that's okay. No! So, yeah, there's that. So surprises that happened in this season, part 1, Pastor Nick dying in episode 1, the existence of Kinney and the Kinney Squad, the anti-personnel squad. It was such a callback to episode 23 and Smile, when we learned where Marlowe got mad because the military police were smuggling equipment and ODM gear into the underground. Now we know it's all come full circle, and we realize why that was. It was to smuggle it all in to Kinney's group, and they were transforming it into the anti-personnel ODM gear and using that equipment for the purpose of hunting down people. Like, it was like a setup and payoff. This entire season has been setting up and paying off different things, and now it's setting up stuff for part 2 to answer, which is really great, right? I learned through comments on YouTube that Kinney's VA in real life, his voice actor in real life, is actually the husband of Hanji's VA. So in real life, Hanji and Kinney, their voice actors are married in real life, which I think is amazing. If Kinney had been younger and not an antagonist, would him and Hanji have gotten along? I don't know. I just find it curious that their voice actors are married in real life. That was just like a little Kinney tidbit that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. The biggest surprise, Kinney wasn't necessarily a villain. not one of the main villains like I thought he was going to be. He had a much more tragic and in-depth character development than I could have seen coming from a mile away. His backstory was a man seeking compassion, realizing that he had it all along. He wasn't total garbage like he thought he was. He actually was a compassionate person. He just couldn't see it for himself. The Kenny backstory, Kenny, we'll talk about him as a character, but I was surprised he didn't make it past episode 10. I honestly thought that Isayama was building him up to be something that would be an entire season-long antagonist, that he would get into part 2, but no. My thought now is that, okay, well, if Kenny wasn't the antagonist, then I thought maybe Rod Reese was the antagonist, and he was, but then he died in episode 9, so I was like, okay, well, Rod isn't the antagonist. Kenny's not the antagonist anymore, so I guess Isayama's building up the Beast Titan to be the antagonist. I guess, and you know what? It's Isayama slapping me in the face because I complained in season 2. I was like, well, the Beast Titan wasn't here for like an episode at all. He was here for like part of an episode and then just wandering around in the background. And now looks like he's going to be a main character. And I'm like, oh, thanks Isayama for hearing me out. So yeah, the conversation between Ymir and Bertolt that Aaron wrote down in episode 1, it instantly came back in episode 2. I thought it was going to be a season-long MacGuffin. I thought when he gave Hanji that note talking about their conversation, I was like, oh, well, crap. I'm like, Hanji's not going to get that note about Ymir and Bertolt's conversation to Erwin until like episode 10. No, it was the very next episode. She was like, here's their conversation. Aaron's going to get eaten. Oh, that was a big surprise. The man inside the Beast Titan, the fact that he smashed Reiner, I was amazed by that. That the fact that the Beast Titan is as strong as he is makes him a lot more intimidating, and the fact that Reiner couldn't take him down at all is a bit scary. We didn't get any scenes with Hanji and Connie's mom, and going out of season 2, I kept thinking that we were going to get that, but we didn't. And I don't know if in the manga there are scenes of Hanji talking with Connie's mom, or at least seeing her, but that doesn't happen. And so there just wasn't time. We got at the end of episode 11, Connie going to visit his parents or his mom in the village. We got that acknowledged, but we never saw Connie or Hanji talking with Connie's mom. And I really thought that was going to happen in this season, and it didn't. So I don't even know if we'll ever get that. I will eventually read the manga and find out, but we just don't know. Annie, surprisingly, was not a focus either. She's just going to be forever trapped in the Survey Corps' custody. My question is with that, I did have a question about that, and I was kind of thinking about this as I was writing my notes out here, so I included it now. But what if someone eats Annie? Do they have to be female? Is her Titan Shifter just good for calling other Titans and hardening? Is that all she does? Because, I mean, she's fast, she's strong. It's mainly Annie's fighting techniques that help her be strong. But I was like, so if somebody eats Annie as a Titan Shifter, she's called the female Titan. Do they have to be female to eat her? Will it change their gender? Does it make you gender fluid? I don't know. But I'm like, is Annie's ability mainly that she can call other Titans to her for assistance and that she can harden her body? Is that really it? Is that her power? I don't know. Don't tell me the answer. I'm assuming maybe we'll find out in part 2, but I was just thinking about that. I was like, if somebody ever ate Annie, would they have to be a woman to do it? Or could they be, because the Titans themselves don't typically have a gender. They're very androgynous. But with Annie specifically, she's called the female Titan and she looks female. So I don't know. The biggest surprises, I think, of this entire series, and this season especially, has been with Historia. Historia going from like a little side tier character that was like just giving Sasha a piece of bread and we're like, oh, well, she's cute and she's sweet, to being a badass boss queen that murders her father and saves an entire city. What? And then becomes queen of the walls? Okay, cool. The biggest surprise was Historia's character in this season. Like, what a roller coaster. And then to couple with that, Aaron's character development, the fact that he ate Grisha, that was an incredible surprise. The fact that the King's Will is supposedly what controls the Titan, the coordinate, and their powers, how Aaron fits into all that. I wondered, will Aaron ever confront the King's Will? Because essentially, it seems like the king's will is embedded in the Titan itself. And this will kind of go down into theories. And I'll talk about this a little more in theories. But the king's will is embedded in the genetic makeup of the coordinate itself. So that when you eat the coordinate and you gain that power, the king's will is embedded into the power. So that's why when Gerald and the other military guys were all like, well, we've got the power in the vessel. So all the vessel has to do is take the power, or technically the power takes the vessel and then becomes its host. The vessel becomes a host for this power, and then the power takes over. So that's not happened with Aaron, but that power is still dormant, right? It's still dormant within Aaron, and it's been used. The coordinate power has been used. So my question is, will Aaron ever subconsciously encounter the king's will? Will there be like an internal struggle within Aaron of whether the king's will take him over or not? I don't know. We don't know. As far as we know, no one that's not a Reese has ever taken the power. I don't know. But then the question remains, how would Rod Reese have known that if you had to be a Reese for the coordinate power to work? So maybe someone in the past has taken the coordinates powers, it didn't work, and then a Reese family member took it back. Maybe that was the case. We don't know. So that's interesting, right? Erwin's backstory with his father, that was a surprise. The way that we saw how Armin's parents died in the hot air balloon, that was a surprise. The nightmare fuel turkey titan that Rod Reese becomes, and the rampage of his gruesome death, the fact that Historia killed him, I thought that Aaron was going to be the one to kill Rod Reese. I really did. I thought Aaron was going to be the one to kill him. But no, it was Historia. I mean, it's much more fitting that it was Historia, but I really thought that Aaron, being our main character, he would be the one to kill Rod Reese, but didn't work. Didn't happen. I mean, essentially, he's the one that threw all the powder kegs in there, so he kind of killed him in a sense, but Historia dealt the final blow, right? The killing blow. The fact that Rod didn't talk about the Titans in the walls, I kept waiting for that to come up. The other characters on the council hinted at it throughout the first part of the season, but it never came up again. Rod never talked about the Titans within the walls. It's been talked about in this series that the Titans are all facing inward, kind of reminiscent of how people in the church family of the church pray. They all pray facing the inside. So there's a connection there. There's something there. And I kept waiting for Rod to talk to Historia about it, and he never did. So that part is still a mystery, right? What's not a mystery is the fact that Titan shifters can have sex. We now know, because Grisha had to have been a Titan shifter when he married Carla. So it is possible for them to reproduce. They can have sex. We don't know if that impacts Aaron in any way, if that affects Aaron's ability to take the coordinate powers or not, if that makes him special. We don't know. It's apparently, the one thing I don't know is, do they pass anything on to their kids? So if a Titan shifter has a child, does anything from the Titan shifter get passed on? We don't know that. The royal family's blood has genetic properties, right? We've established that you have to be a Reese or technically a Fritz to gain the founding Titans and the King's Will, their power in the King's Will. So there's something genetic there. So why couldn't we assume that there's something genetic with a Titan shifter passing that genetic material onto a child? We don't know. That part is still up in the air. It's a question. Do they pass on anything to their kids? We don't know. We don't know for sure if Grisha was a Titan shifter when Aaron was born, but I'm pretty sure. I'm 99.9% sure he was. Aaron's supposedly incomplete, but his power still worked. That was a surprise. Getting the flashback of Aaron at the graveyard, the scenes with him and his friends and Historia. It's great seeing Aaron connecting with his fellow cadets, but it's also great seeing these flashbacks showing how much Aaron cares about his friends. Like, that was a big surprise, and I'm so glad that it happened this season. Mikasa, she was a teensy bit jealous of Historia in this season, but not quite as jealous as she was of Annie, I would argue. So, I don't know, is that the Ackerman blood working with the royal family, where the Ackermans want to protect the royal family? So is Mikasa not being quite as harsh on Historia tied to that? We've talked about genetics and how that all works. Is she subconsciously unaware of it? We don't know. And then I really liked the surprise of how much Armin was involved with strategizing with Levi and Hanji. I thought that was really cool. Armin has been proven to be our strategist of the cadets, and Hanji is one of the smartest of the Survey Corps, right up there with Levi. So I like that Armin was strategizing with them. Armin wasn't quite with Erwin yet. In season 2, you could tell there was that bond between Armin and Erwin. So the death flags are out for Erwin, and we'll talk about that later on in this. But since Armin's been able to connect with Hanji and Levi, I'm wondering if Armin is going to connect to Erwin in any way in part 2, because it's been set up in season 2. So I'm curious if it's going to come back full circle. I don't know. It just seems like it's maybe setting up for that, because Armin has interacted with Hanji and Levi, but there's still that room to interact with Erwin that we've not had yet. And so I'm wondering if part 2, if that's going to be a thing. We don't know. And then another one of the biggest surprises of the season, Keith's backstory. Episode 11, probably one of the most surprising. I thought episode 6 was surprising because we learned about Aaron eating Grisha, and it was. It was probably like the biggest reveal. But Keith's backstory, his connection with Grisha and Carla, the whole thing about him sabotaging the belt. We talked in comments about why Keith would sabotage the belt. Was Keith sabotaging the belt because he wanted to prove whether Aaron was truly special or not since he gained the coordinate powers? Was he trying to prove that? Or was he just trying to protect Aaron because he was Carla's son and he loved Carla and he wanted to keep Aaron safe for her? Or is it both? We don't know. But I thought that was so fascinating. And then the biggest surprise, which should not be a surprise at the end here I've got, is that, they're headed to the basement and the Beast Titan and Reiner Bertolt are waiting on them. They are waiting for them to get to Shiganshina, where it all began, right? We're going back to the beginning. It shouldn't be surprising because this season has been all about coming full circle, and part 2 of this season is coming full circle completely, going back to where episode 1 started. Like, we have not been in Shiganshina since episode 1 of season 1, and now we're going back there. It's pretty insane, y'all. It's pretty terrifying. But yeah, so we've got a third toast to do. We should do that. This third toast is going to be to Alma. Sweet Alma. Alma, Historia's mother, she died in episode 3. She was extremely troubled, and you could tell she didn't like the fact that she'd been forced to have Historia, that she'd been forced to have her after her affair with Rodriguez, that she'd been forced to stay on the farm and basically watch over Historia, even though she didn't do a lot of parenting at all. But you could tell at the end of the day she was a tragic figure, and she was just haunted and just completely bankrupt of emotion right to the end when she denied Historia was even her daughter, and then lamented having her and begged for her life only for it to be taken by Kenny. So a sad end to a sad individual. R.I.P. Alma. Okay, so some things that were answered. I put down here things answered for my season 3 predictions. I am surprised by how few predictions I had for part 1. I didn't have a lot of predictions at all. So much more happened than I even expected that I didn't have a lot of predictions. I was just like, okay. Armin, Mikasa, Jean, Connie, and Sasha and Aaron, they're the new Levi Squad. I wondered what was going to happen with them. They became the Levi Squad. Questions answered. Marlo, Hitch, and Niall reappeared. There was more with the military police. I had wanted that. The royal family and Historia, we got backstory. I had wanted that, so that was answered. Bertolt and Reiner did meet up with the Beast Titan. I wondered if they would. They did. They're waiting in Shiganshina. And then I asked where Grisha was. Welp, he's been with us all along. He's been with us all along. And with that, I've got some more toasts for toast number 4, but this is RIP number 4 here. I've got some more from episode 6 that we're going to toast, but I wondered where Grisha had been. And you all, first of all, thank you all for not spoiling me. Thank you so very much for not spoiling me. Because I'm sure I was annoying as hell because I kept being like, where's Grisha? And y'all were like, wait till she finds out where Grisha's been. And I was like, what does that mean? And then I found out, and he's been with us the entire time. So we'll talk a little bit about character rankings. I had Grisha like in D rank at the end of season 2. What a terrible decision. What a terrible decision. Hashtag regrets. Because Grisha, he possibly saved humanity by taking the coordinate powers and giving them to his son, but he clearly loved his son. He clearly loved Carla, and he's still a very mysterious character, and I want to know more about Grisha. I want to know more about Grisha now than ever before. Ever since episode 11, I was like, I need to know more about this man that supposedly lost his memory, was a doctor, saved an entire city from a plague, and wanted to learn everything about the Scouts and held them in such high regard. I want to know more about Grisha Yeager, more so now than I ever have before. And I'm hoping in part 2 we get some more answers. So in the meantime, to a man that I severely misjudged, R.I.P. Grisha Yeager, at least you're still with us in spirit, right? So yeah. Don't I feel sheepish? As far as questions that were unanswered from the season 2 RIP recap review and RIP, there were some unanswered questions that are still on the table, and I want to talk about those before we go into theories. First of all, will Hanji ever talk to Connie's mom that we see on screen? Connie knows about the situation. Will Connie and Hanji, will we ever see a moment with him and Hanji and their mom? I don't know. Maybe we won't get that. We're getting to the basement. Exactly how we get to the basement is going to be, because I'm thinking about this. They're traveling to Wall Maria. They've got to plug up the hole. And then, so they got to plug up the hole right where the Titans came in to Shiganshina, right? So they got to plug up that hole and then plug up the hole into Wall Maria itself. So they got 2 major holes to plug up here. The one that Reiner busts through and then the one that Bertolt busts through. So I'm sure that Aaron knows the lay of the land enough. It's only been 4 months. He knows where his home is. He knows where to find it in the city. The question is, does Bertolt and Reiner know where Aaron's home is? Right? Does the Beast Titan know where Aaron's home is? Because there's a lot of buildings in Shiganshina. The problem with it all is that Aaron kind of gave Bertolt the answer to where his home is, because he told Bertolt back in episode 3, he told him that when Bertolt kicked the wall in, or he told Bertolt back in episode 9 and 10 of season 2, he told Bertolt that when he kicked in the wall, a big chunk of rock fell onto his house. Well, that narrows your options down. All Bertolt and Reiner have to do is scan the city and find a house that has a giant chunk of rock over it, and they'll know it's Aaron's house. So the question is, 1, will they be able to make it to the house without Bertolt and Reiner knowing about it? Luckily, the Titan that ate Carla kind of lifted her out of the rubble, and so it probably opened up an area where Aaron and Mikasa and them could get inside the basement. But you're inside the basement, a Titan could just reach in and grab you, just like that Titan grabbed Carla. So, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. So I'm like, the fact of them getting to the basement is a mission in itself. But once they get to the house, getting actually inside the basement to find the answers is going to be a crazy thing. And Erwin wants to make it there and find the truth out, but are they going to be able to? Is Erwin going to make it to that basement? I don't know. There's a lot of what ifs, and with this show, the more what ifs you have, the more room for error, and the more room for error, the not so good it is, right? This isn't like the coup d'etat where Erwin could kind of predict how the government was going to answer. He could predict the government's reply to his questions in episodes 4 and 5. The Beast Titan, Bertolt and Reiner, they are not going to answer, I think, the way Erwin plans. And so I'm very, very nervous about all of that. Other unanswered questions. Is Annie ever going to be freed? Who is inside the Beast Titan? It looks like the blonde monster from the season 2 ED, but who is the man inside the monster? Who is this blonde guy with glasses that seems utterly bored that he's even there? We're going to find out. I'm curious to know who this guy is. Very curious. And then the hype for season 3 part 2, y'all. It's getting real. The more I talk about this recap, the more I'm getting excited for season 3 part 2, but I'm honestly extremely nervous. I know that I'm predicting we're going to have more Titan lore bombs. There's going to be more world building. Will we get to see the Titans' hometown? Bertolt and Reiner talked about their hometown. Will we ever see it? Will we see the Titans' world? What is outside the walls? We have humanity's side of the story up until this point. We've really gotten humanity's side of the story. Now we need to see the other side, right? To get the full picture. And we're going to talk about that with themes. But yeah, so to finish out the next RIP toast from episode 6, we had a lot of deaths in the flashback. We had Frida, we had Ulkin, we had Abel, we had Dirk, we had Florian, and we had the mom. We had 6 Reese family members die within a span of 5 minutes in the episode. So, you know, I'm going to do a toast for each pair. So we had the mom and Florian die as a pair. We didn't know much about them. Dirk and Abel, the two sons, we don't know much about them. And then finally, we had Oakland, that I'm assuming is named for Uri. And then we had Frida. And Frida, I do feel sorry for Frida because she seemed like a really nice person. She seemed to kind of follow in her uncle's footsteps, that she was a kind-hearted person. She wanted to help Historia and help her to learn how to read and make sure she had a decent life. And, you know, gaining the Titan powers, it just was a stroke of bad luck. She kind of just was doomed herself, that she was going to be a pacifist, but also that she wasn't going to be able to defend herself against Grisha. And she died a pretty terrible death. Grisha, like, eating her right out of the neck. But yeah, I felt bad for Frida. Frida didn't deserve, I think, the death that she got, especially for all the kindness that she showed to Historia. So, R.I.P. Frida, Oakland, Dirk, Abel, the mom, Florian. R.I.P. y'all. We didn't know much about your characters, but y'all died some pretty gruesome deaths and probably deserve better. Okay. So, we need to theorize here. So, theories. I've taken my Aaron as the antagonist and made Aaron as the antagonist 2.0. Because Aaron's character went through massive character growth in this season. Holy shit. Like, what? Way more than I expected. It messes with my antagonist theory a bit. It does. It at least makes it more complicated. So, several of you have commented that in going back to season 1 to episode 13, the Primal Desires episode, Aaron has carried this metaphorical, he's carried a literal boulder on his shoulder to save Trost, but he has been carrying a metaphorical boulder on his shoulder of being the savior to humanity for most of this series, for seasons 1 and seasons 2. And I will be honest with y'all, I liked Aaron's character, but he wasn't like, I was like, oh, he's our protagonist, he's fine. But he wasn't my favorite. He wasn't in my top 5 characters. I was like, I liked Aaron's character, and I put Aaron's character in S tier at the end of last season because of episode 12. Because it was his character turning around, turning a new leaf, and vocalizing all of his frustrations and getting all that emotion out. And then us realizing, okay, yeah, Aaron has all these emotions. He has all of this complications within him, and he's self-aware of it. This season, I fell in love with Aaron's character in this season. I feel like if you didn't like Aaron in seasons 1 and seasons 2, I totally understand. If you didn't like him, because Aaron's rage mode is frustrating, because season 1 and season 2, I wanted Aaron to slow down and think about what was going on and just give it some more thought and reflect. And he did that this season. He finally did it. He reflected. We got to see how much he cares about his comrades. We got to see how much he reflected on his dad and Grisha's sin and everything. Like Aaron's conversation with Historia, we saw a much more nuanced, fleshed out Aaron Yeager. And it's the main character I've wanted since the beginning of the series, and we finally got it. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like where Aaron is right now, I can get behind Aaron's character. In the last season, I talked about Aaron becoming an antagonist because, as a lot of you have noted, an antagonist is usually somebody that has good intentions. They just go about creating those good intentions through the wrong means. And that's usually how they become villains or antagonists. And I was commenting that Aaron seemed like he was going through things the wrong way. And in this season, he's finally, he slaps himself upside the face in episode 9 and gets it together and realizes that, yeah, I may not be what y'all expected, but I am the ace up humanity's sleeve right now, and I'm going to have to start acting like it. I'm going to have to start pulling my weight like everybody else is, because I may be a normal person who is not special, but I've been given a special ability by a special man, and so I need to take advantage of it. It's like, yes, thank you. So I talked a little bit about this in episode 11, but I want to talk about this further. And I'm going to talk about this in the ships. But I'm going to bring up this, and we're on theories, so I feel like now is a good time to bring it up because it may come back into play later. But could Aaron marry Historia? I'm just throwing it out there. I know a lot of you will be like, well, I don't ship Aaron and Historia, and that's fine. But I'm like, could he marry Historia? Historia's a queen. Here's the thing. I talked about this in episode 11. I'm going to talk about it now. Historia is a queen. She is going to be pressured into marrying somebody because she is the last of the Fritz bloodline. She is the last of the Founding Titans bloodline. So there's going to be a push for her to get married. I wish Ymir was around. She'll be like, I'm marrying Ymir. And we'd all be like, cool, great, awesome, do it. But unfortunately, Ymir's not here. And I don't think Ymir's coming back into the story, at least until season 4, if that's a thing. But Historia is the last of her bloodline officially now. So, here's the thing. Historia has to marry somebody. Who would she pick? Some random person? I don't know. So, I'm like, who does Historia know? I mean, obviously, if Ymir's not there, I honestly think if Ymir's not there, Aaron's choice number 2, could that happen? I mean, the nobility that would say no to all that, they'd be like, well, Aaron's just a commoner. You can't marry him. They're gone. The coup d'etat happened. They're kicked out. Zachary's got them hooked up to a human centipede chair. They're not going to say anything, right? And everybody knows that Historia is the queen ruler of the wall. She's the one that fought the Titans and saved Orvud. Those kids, the reason why I say Aaron too is those kids in episode 9 that were looking up at the wall when Aaron transformed, they saw Aaron transform and they saw him fight Rod Reese. They saw him fighting for humanity. So it would not be against reason that those kids would spread the word around about Aaron helping, and Aaron would be considered a hero of Orvud. He's already considered by some within Walsina to be like a god, basically. They were like, he can turn into a Titan. We should revere him, you know? So it doesn't stand within it stands within reason that I could see the people of the kingdom getting behind Aaron and Historia, because Aaron is the savior of humanity, and Historia is a savior of humanity too in her own way. So I could see them getting together. And Historia, of all the guys around her, Aaron's kind of the one that she relates to and respects the most. So, but then if you're hypothesizing, I'm not saying this is going to happen because it's Attack on Titan and come on. I'm just hypothesizing at this point. But the thing of it is too, if Aaron, it could be like a symbolic passing of the torch too. If Aaron got to the point where he's like, I don't think Aaron believes at this point, I'm trying to clarify myself. I don't think Aaron believes at this point that he should be eaten. I think Aaron went through that period where he was like, Historia, eat me and take the powers of the Titan, take the powers of the Founding Titan back. Aaron went through that point. I don't think Aaron's at that point anymore. Aaron has accepted that he is going to have the powers of the Coordinate. He's not going to be the complete Founding Titan like what was expected, but he's got the power of the Coordinate and he's going to use them. So I feel like Aaron has accepted that fate that he has. But if Aaron and Historia had a kid and that kid had Reese blood, that kid could eat Aaron one day and take the powers of the Coordinate back. I don't know. I don't know. Would Aaron even let that happen? I don't know. I can't see that happening though, because Aaron was so traumatized and terrified at the idea that he had turned into a Titan and ate his father, and he was so against Historia going through that same fate, that I honestly can't see him letting his child have that happen to them. So maybe not. The theory came up that would Aaron marry Historia? I don't know. I don't think so, but I just wanted to bring it up because it's a fun theory, right? It's a fun theory. So, but still, going back to Aaron possibly becoming an antagonist, this season has really complicated that theory. And so, I don't know. Aaron still believes to a certain extent that things aren't going to be perfect as long as he has the Founding Titan powers. But he's accepted that he's humanity's ace now and that it's okay. And Isayama, to the credit here, Isayama this season, or part 1 especially, has established that being a hero isn't necessarily a good thing. Levi teased Kenny for playing the hero, and Kenny teased Levi for being a hero. So, and other characters like Aaron have been kind of punished for having that mentality. Like, Isayama has established that being the end-all be-all hero that's going to save the day isn't necessarily a good thing. And it doesn't work in real life, right? Or at least real life in this show. So, I feel like with that being the case, that opens up the windows for Aaron becoming like a third-party antagonist still, because he's not going to play the hero. I don't know. I feel like Isayama's saying something with that line about being a hero and it having repercussions that I think is going to come back in part 2 and in season 4, but we just haven't got there yet. But again, no good deed goes unpunished. Grisha's sin, the idea that his good intentions resulted in his own son eating him and being traumatized and going through all of this mess. Good intentions, good deeds, but they've caused a lot of trauma for other people, right? Supposedly, according to Algum Algum, there was a moment in the manga, and I think maybe Nathalie, you commented about this as well, that Frida in the manga called all of the characters, she lamented to Historia and cried and called all of humanity sinners. And Historia remembered that while she was thinking about Ymir's words in episode 7. So the idea of Frida calling everyone sinners, and it takes place right after the episode called Sin, I find that curious. I'm wanting to know, was it all of humanity that are considered sinners, or is it the coordinate titan, the founding titan, that's considered a sinner? We don't know. And what is the sin? What sin did they commit? Is it something related to the other titan shifters? We don't know that. Aaron's new outlook on everything and knowing the truth. Again, we got a preview of that in episode 11, but I'm like, how is he going to interact with Reiner and Bertolt? Because everything from episode 9 and 10 in season 2, you now have to look at through a totally new lens now that Aaron knows everything about that conversation and the fact that he's ate Grisha and everything. He says he's going to kill him, and I believe him. I believe that I'm glad that in episode 12, Aaron, when he was talking with Armin Mikasa, he's like, we want things to go back to a sense of normalcy, but that's not possible because of Reiner and Bertolt. And because of that, because we'll never get Hannes back, because we'll never get Armin's family back, because we'll never get Carla back, because we've lost those people and it was Reiner and Bertolt's fault, because of that, they're going to have to die before they can ruin other people's lives the same way. So I do believe that Aaron has resolve now to kill Reiner and Bertolt. Back in season 2, it almost felt like lofty threats. Like Aaron was like, well, I'm going to kill you because you're a Titan. And it's like, but Aaron, you're a Titan. So it's more complicated than that. And what I loved about this part 1 of season 3 is that Aaron finally realizes how complicated the situation is. He realizes where Reiner and Bertolt were coming from when they did that apology. He goes back to Bertolt's words in episode 12 when he's like, I felt sorry for you. Like he goes back to those exact words. Aaron understands the context now of Reiner and Bertolt and what they've gone through. But Aaron also realizes that what they're doing is wrong and he needs to stop them. So now when he says he's going to kill Reiner and Bertolt, it's not just rage mode Aaron just shouting things to be shouting things. He knows the context and what he says has conviction and has reason behind it. And I'm like, thank God. Thank God we got to that point, Aaron. But yeah, so I'm going to be very interested to see how he interacts with Reiner and Bertolt. Very interested. Okay. And so Aaron's saying he's not special, even though Carla's words kind of contradict that. Grisha being established as special. And I'm so glad Aaron has backstory about his family's origins. I'm so glad. That kind of complicates the whole antagonist timeline theory too, right? Because Aaron finally knows his parents' backstory and he knows about his father and his mother. So it's making things more complicated. I do think they are setting something up with Aaron and Levi, though. I do think that something is being set up with Aaron and Levi. And I think that because Levi, as being an Ackerman, we've established in this season that the Ackermans were the sword of the king. They were sword of royalty, but they are protectors. They are dedicated to protecting people they care about. And we've established that Mikasa cares about Aaron, Kenny cared about Uri, and Levi cares about Erwin. But what happens if Erwin dies? I think Erwin's going to die in part 2. I really do. It's just setting up. We'll talk about his character, but I think it's setting it up. I think he's going to die. I think it's setting it up that Erwin is going to die. And so if Levi doesn't have Erwin, Levi needs something to protect. And I feel like that's going to be Aaron. We've had all of the foreshadowing with it. We've had Levi sticking up for Aaron. Levi understanding where Aaron's coming from in terms of his feelings of loss. We saw that in No Regrets, that Levi and Aaron are very similar in feeling intense rage and emotions towards losing loved ones. And in this last season, Levi has really stuck up for Aaron. And I feel like that's going to happen even more in part 2, especially if we lose Erwin. Because Levi needs somebody to have a purpose for and to protect. And I feel like that could be Aaron. I feel like just like when Kenny lost Uri, he kind of took in Levi, and Levi was kind of Kenny's new person he wanted to protect, and then he realized he needed to leave Levi for his own good. And I feel like if Levi loses Erwin, he's going to kind of latch on to Aaron. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I just feel like it's the foreshadowing is there. There's a connection there somehow. So yeah, in episode 12, Aaron brings back the cause, his resolve. He's going to help humanity with his powers. My question is, if there's going to be a disconnect, when's it going to happen and how? Because here's the thing. Don't think I haven't forgotten. At the beginning of season 3, part 1, Aaron was by the ocean by himself. How did he get there? Why is he by himself? Is he actually by himself, or do we just see him by himself? It's like everybody else in the background and he's just in this one moment monologuing. I don't know. But we have to get back to that point, right? And Aaron's hair's grown out, so I don't know. We just got to see, right? When's the disconnect going to happen, and how's it going to happen? That's what part 2 is. I'm curious about. Is the basement going to be a catalyst for all of this? That's the other question. Is the basement going to be a catalyst? What does the Beast Titan know about the basement? Is it just what Bertolt and Reiner have told him based on Erwin's plans? Did he know stuff from before this series even started? I don't know. I feel like in episode 12, there was a little bit of tension established between Aaron and Armin's relationship. Like a little bit. Because at that moment, Armin was asking him about the sea. He's like, when we were kids, we wanted to go beyond the walls and see the sea. Isn't that awesome? Like, once we take back Wall Maria, we can do that. And Aaron shows the slightest bit of hesitation, and that gives Armin pause. And so I think it's the tiniest little moment. But again, Isayama, being the storyteller that he is, that tiny little moment could turn into something huge. And so I keep thinking that we're going to go back to that little moment, and Armin's been our narrator this whole series, so I feel like Armin is maybe going to explain that moment, or at least go back to it. We don't know, right? But there's definitely the possibility, it's not lost on me that there's a possibility of losing a lot of people in this second part, right? The reunion with Reiner and Bertolt, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of death. Like Survey Corps, I think Erwin's going to die. There could be a cadet member that dies. It just seems like we got off pretty scot-free during the Rod Reese incident. I kept thinking that maybe somebody was going to die to the Kinney squad or to Rod Reese that was important, but they got off scot-free there. So I'm like, okay, Isayama spared everybody up until this point. What are we going to do in part 2? And I'm honestly really nervous. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. So I have questions about Grisha too. When did Grisha become a Titan shifter? Is he from outside the wall originally? I think he is. Did Uri or Uri's father erase his memory? Did someone else erase his memory, or did he fake it? Was he just faking losing his memory so that Keith would tell him all about the Survey Corps and all about the world, and he could learn about inside the walls? It'd be really clever if that was it, if Grisha was like, I've lost my memory and I have amnesia, but I'm a doctor, so let me work in your hospital while you tell me all the secrets of your world. I feel like that's more likely what happened, that Grisha was just faking it, but we don't know for sure. How did he become a Titan shifter? Did Carla know he was a Titan shifter? Because Carla told Aaron to protect Mikasa. And there's a part of me that's like, well, that was just Carla telling Aaron to protect Mikasa because she's like a sister to him. But there's another part of me that's like, did Carla know the significance of Mikasa being an Ackerman? Did Grisha ever tell her that? Because Grisha knew the family. He made personal house calls to see them. He traveled all the way out of his way. And there's a part of me that would think, okay, well, Grisha didn't know the significance of the Ackermans because, again, he had to learn about the world from Keith. And Keith wouldn't have known about the Ackermans and their significance. So maybe he didn't know anything. But Grisha clearly knew more than Keith about the Titan world and about the royal family, because he went the night Shiganshina fell. He went to Rod Reese's underground chapel and asked something of the coordinate, asked something of Frida, and when he didn't get what he wanted, he cut his hand and turned into a Titan shifter. So Grisha knew. I wonder, if we're theorizing here, I wonder if Grisha was sent to infiltrate. I wonder if Grisha was sent to infiltrate inside the walls and get the coordinate powers and go back to wherever the Beast Titan and them are. And then along the way, he met Carla, he fell in love, they had Aaron, and he decided that he didn't want to leave anymore. What if he got inside the walls and realized it was paradise? And to him, that was paradise. He's like, I don't want to leave now. I want to stay here. And what if he decided to stay there with Carla and have Aaron, and the Beast Titan and the other Titan shifters got pissed off and they're like, why isn't Grisha coming back with the coordinate powers? Why isn't he doing what we asked him to do? And then when they realized he wasn't coming back, they were like, well, screw it. We'll just invade. And so they sent Reiner and Bertolt, Marcel, and Annie to go destroy Shiganshina to let the Titans in and to just take over from there. We don't know. Grisha is so mysterious, and we're given just enough info about Grisha to feel bad that we doubted him. And now I'm like, well, now what? So I feel like Grisha had a falling out with the warrior crew or the other Titan shifters, and he decided to stay within Shiganshina, but we just don't know enough, because Grisha being so mad when he finds out that the Titan ate Carla, Grisha being absolutely livid. It's like, okay, all right. He clearly wanted Aaron to avenge his mom then. So something happened. There's parts of the story. Again, we don't know the full picture. There's parts of the stories we don't know about. I'm waiting in part 2 to see what else we get, but we just don't know enough yet, right? So as far as the Titan shifters go, are there more Titan shifters than what we know about? We know about the Beast Titan, the Colossal, the Armored, the Female, Ymir's, Grisha, and the Coordinate. We know about 7 Titan shifter types that we know of. I originally thought there would be lots of different Titan shifters, but now I'm not sure. This season makes everything feel claustrophobic, right? I feel like season 1, everything was contained within the walls. And then season 2, we started to realize that there was more of a world out there maybe. And then season 1 started to retract it back, like, oh no, now we're back within the walls, and everything was really self-contained. And now we're going back to Shiganshina, and there's been all this foreshadowing with Armin about what's beyond the walls, and Erwin wanting to go beyond the walls, and Keith wanting to go beyond the walls. And so I feel like this part 1 has been a very claustrophobic, tightly woven season. And now part 2, I feel like, is going to go all out, balls to the walls. It's just going to burst out, and we're going to finally get to see what's outside the walls. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. But who knows? Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we've got 3 to 4 pairs of Titan shifters, which I find interesting. I mean, technically we've got 3 pairs and a 7th one. So I'm curious if there's a significance to that. I don't know. We know the Eastern Clan and the Ackermans were royal family bloodlines that left. We don't know why. We know it has something to do with the founding Titan. Is it tied to Grisha's dissension? We don't know. The Ackermans need to feel the need to protect someone. Why? Why is it tied to the warrior crew? Why do the Ackermans have this electricity flowing through them that's very similar to the Titans? Why is that? I'm assuming it's because the Titan, the king, the founding Titan, gave like his blood or something to these families so that they wouldn't be affected by his powers, and that's just passed through generation to generation. And the Ackermans are a family that it's like, that's the electricity, that's the power that goes through them. I don't know. Again, we don't know enough about it. And what we also don't know enough about it is the serum. Supposedly there's only one type of serum. It just turns you into a dumb Titan, but we don't know where the armor bottle fits into all this. And I hate the idea, I talked about it in episode 12, I hate the idea that Levi has this serum. It gives me bad vibes. I'm sure it's going to be our Deus Ex Machina in part 2. I'm sure it's going to be the saving grace of the season. And in hindsight, I'm going to be like, man, I'm glad Levi had that serum. I don't feel that way now. I feel very nervous and anxious about it, and I don't like it. So there's that, right? There's that. Theories that were right and wrong. I did not get a lot of theories right in this season at all. The only theories I got right was figuring out that Levi and Kenny were uncle and nephew, which I already knew Levi's last name was Ackerman when I started this show. That was the only major spoiler I had. So it wasn't a hard jump to make that conclusion, but it was fun finding out all the information about the Ackerman family and what they mean in terms of the royal family. That was really good. I made a prediction that we'd get Grisha flashbacks. Was right about that, just not how I expected it. and then that the royal family, surprising no one, is at the center of all this. Those are the only theories I got right. Yeah, this whole thing. Wrong theories. Where I thought the plot was going, part 2. I thought that there would be so much more to the inner 4 members of the council. King Fritz, I thought King Fritz was going to be this ominous presence. He was going to be like this major threat. Like he was going to be the big antagonist. Nah. No. Not at all. He was just an actor. Just a guy sitting on a throne. No big deal. I thought that those 4 generals, like Gerald and Auril, Roderick and them, I thought Deltoff, I thought they were going to be major players. Nope. Not at all. They were just parts, just pawns in the end. And we didn't get a lot of focus on them at all. I was amazed. I really thought that most of the season was going to be tied back to their characters, but it really wasn't. It wasn't even really with Sonus either. They were all just sent to jail. I honestly thought in this first part that Erwin and Moblet would die. I had death flags on Erwin and Moblet. I really had death flags on Aaron in episode 4 and episode 5. And thank goodness he didn't die, but the death flags are back on. But for the most of this season 1, I kept thinking Erwin was going to die. I thought Moblet was going to die. He did not. He's been doing great. Moblet's having a great season. And then Bertolt, I had predicted that Bertolt was going to die in this part of the season, but he's still here. We're just now seeing him, so there's that. I thought by the end of episode 9, I theorized that Levi would become a Titan by Kenny's hand. He has a serum, so he could still become a Titan. I don't want Levi to become a Titan. That sounds terrifying. I don't want him to become a Titan, but I thought there was a chance that by Kenny's hand, I thought either Kenny or Levi at the start of episode 10 was going to become a Titan, and then neither of them did. Kenny just died. I originally thought in episode 1 that Levi was going to kill Kenny, and that Kenny would die by Levi's hands, even if it was inadvertently. But the funny thing is, the ironic thing in all of this, is that Kenny died by his own hands. Technically, Kenny cutting the mouth of Rod Reese while he was talking to Historia sealed his fate, because that's what allowed Rod Reese to become the Titan, and it's what eventually caused the cave-in, which knocked Kenny and killed him and his crew members. So it was like Kenny sealed his own fate. He died by his own hands, which I guess if there was a way for Kenny to go out, it would be by his own hands. I think so. And then so many theories I had about the royal family, about Titan lore, about everything. They've all been shifted. Titan shifters. They've been shifted around. I felt good about predicting Titans and knowing about the Titans. I'm in no man's land now. I feel like there's so much we still don't know about the Titan side of the story. We've gotten pretty much all of humanity wrapped up. We know enough about humanity and humanity's side of the story. We got it. Now it's just, we need to know about the Titan side. That's what I've been waiting on this whole series. I have been waiting this entire series to find out about these damn Titans. And I have a feeling we're going to get some answers in part 2. The question is, what are those answers going to be? And should I have been wanting these answers all along? Right? I don't know. Guys. What I do know is we're ready for toast number 5. Now that we're done talking about theories, we need to give a toast to sweet Uri. Uri Fritz, Uri Reese. Uri, he became a character that I really wanted to know more about, because he was a pacifist and he had this dream of paradise, but the episode with him and Kenny made me instantly more intrigued about his character. And I really liked that his character was compassionate. And at the end of the day, he chose to spare Kenny. I mean, obviously there were ulterior motives involved, but he did spare Kenny, and he seemed to form a genuine friendship with Kenny that is interesting. And now I ship Kenny and Uri completely, so it's great. But Uri was an interesting character. The fact in the flashback that Rod Reese seemingly forced the serum and the role of becoming the founding Titan onto Uri is interesting. That's what the images lead you to believe as the audience. Now, whether that's true or not, we're not entirely sure, but that seems to be the case. But yeah, Uri, and we'll talk about this when we get to Rod Reese, but Uri was just a character that I wanted to know more about, and we got just enough from Isayama to paint us a very clear picture of Uri, but leave us hungry for more. So very fitting, right? So to King Uri, to the founding Titan, at least you were kind to Kenny, and taught him the meaning of compassion. R.I.P. Holy cow. So, themes. This season, part 1, I feel like is every theme that Isayama has wanted to bring to the table, he's brought to the table. He's like, here's all of the major themes we've been building up this entire series. We're building it up to this moment in season 3, part 1. And now part 2 and season 4 are going to test all of those themes and see which ones come out in the wash. That's how I feel going into part 2. I feel like Isayama has spent this entire season setting up everything, giving us these theories to munch over, and now he's like, okay, we're gonna test them now. We're gonna see if they hold true. It's like, great. So the biggest theme, the first theme that I put on here was just the theme of faith. The idea of Pastor Nick and Uri dying for their faith. Pastor Nick and Uri died with their stark beliefs in question and believing them to the end. Sonis and Rod Reese were willing to die for their faith at first, and then they were tempted, and temptation led them astray. So I find that interesting. Both Sonis was tempted by the torture of Ralph and how Ralph called into question Sonis's entire respect and dignity, and that led Sonis astray. Rod Reese, he became seemingly willing to die for his faith, but he was still a coward in the end. Kaven, that name though, we've talked about this in the episode, but Kaven, really, Isayama, you gave her a name, nomenclature that was like, what is it, nomenclature destiny? Like Kaven, really, Trout. She died for her faith in Kenny. She claimed to have no faith in anything at all, and by the end of her life, she was faithful that Kenny was the one to see everything through and to get their dream to become a reality, and she had faith in him, and that faith caused her to die. And then Kenny, he died seeking the same faith that Uri had. He wanted to know why Uri believed the things that he did and why he was compassionate, and if it was the founding titan that gave him that compassion or if it was something else. So Kenny died seeking out that faith to find out why Uri was like that. So faith has had a big play in all of this, and which I find really interesting. The idea though, I feel like Isayama's playing us. Because the idea that we can't see the whole picture, that's been a theme throughout this whole series. Starting season 1, episode 1, y'all were saying that this show has rewatchability. Oh, it does. Because when you go back and you see same scenes over again, you're like, well, crap, I feel totally different about that scene now that I have context for this. I think the biggest case in point example of that Isayama is not giving us the full picture intentionally and is intentionally playing all of us. The biggest example of that is in the scene from episode 10 where Kenny meets Uri. We saw a flashback of that in episode 9, enough to get you theorizing and thinking. We saw a flashback of that in episode 9, and all Kenny is focused on is Uri. From Kenny's perspective, in that moment, Uri is the only thing that matters in the picture, and that's all we, the audience, see through Kenny's eyes. But when we look back through and Kenny talks about first meeting Uri, we see more of the full picture, and we see that Rod's there too. And we see that Rod's threatening to kill Kenny. And we see a much fuller picture, but that's not what we saw at first. And I feel like that's such a metaphorical representation of Isayama in this series. We start out seeing a little bit of the picture. And then the longer we go on in the story, the more the picture starts to reveal itself. And that's such a really cool theme. And I feel like a lot of you are commenting saying that the idea of moral grayness is going to get tested from here on in. Once season 3 part 1 has been all about moral ambiguity and the idea that no one is necessarily right, no one is necessarily wrong. It's Levi's conversation with Armin and Jean in the warehouse. It's like, I'm not saying you're wrong, you may be right, but at the end of the day, it's just your decision. And what decision can you live with and not regret? That's like such a theme. Hashtag no regrets is like the theme of this entire series. Like, what can you do that you won't think back on and regret in the future? Like, it's crazy, y'all. It's absolutely insane. But I love the idea that we're not seeing the full picture. And I'm really excited for season 3, part 2, to see what other pieces we're missing. I'm hoping that those scenes with Grisha and Keith, that scene when Keith first meets Grisha, I feel like there's something missing from it. So I hope in season 3, part 2, that we go back to that scene, that we get back to that discussion, and Aaron sees more about Grisha and his past. The whole scene of Grisha going down into the cathedral to plead with Rod, Reese, and Frida, we don't get the full picture. And at some point, I hope that when Aaron finds out what's in the basement, we get to see the full picture and what the whole side of the story was. I hope we get that. That seems to be a big thing that Isayama's leading up to, and I can't wait for us to get more into it. The theme of humanity in a cage, connecting back to season 1 through the ED in season 2, and the idea that you're not alone in the bird cage. That was the ED of season 2, that you're not alone in the bird cage. And the whole ED had been talked about being spoilers for season 3, and I think so. But the idea that you're not alone in the bird cage, and the idea of, is it better to be free or not, right? Connecting with Uri's wish for paradise. Was paradise possible from the start? Because even though Uri was claiming that he wanted to create paradise for humanity so that they could enjoy life before it all went to hell in a handbasket, the question is, what paradise were you creating and how were you creating it? He was creating paradise by stagnating technological advances and by silencing people and murdering them. So in that regard, you have to consider, if that's the means that you create peace, is it really peace, right? Or is it a faux peace? Is it fabricated, And what does that mean if it is fabricated peace? Is it still peace? What does that mean, right? If you're in a bird cage and you have others with you, is that okay? Is that enough? For some people, it's not. For Keith, it wasn't enough. Keith was like, I was confined within the walls and I hated it, so I had to move out. Aaron's always wanted to move out. Flagle was talking about being frustrated within the walls. Like there's the idea of the birdcage and whether or not freedom is worth it. That's been brought up in this series. And the idea that freedom has a cost. The Titan powers have a cost. Knowledge has a cost. The truth can hurt, but so can freedom, right? I'm looking at Aaron. I'm looking at Historia. I'm looking at Armin and Jean. Armin and Jean realize in episode 2 that the idea of freedom and gaining the truth and answers, they're going to have to kill people. They're going to have to take lives. And that's going to be a cost that they have to make. That's a price they have to pay to get the freedom that they want. The idea that Aaron had to eat his father to gain the freedom that he has and the power that he has. The idea that Erwin, the knowledge he gains has a cost. It's made him obsessed with it to the point where I think it's going to kill him. Everything has a price to it. And the Titan powers even have a price to them. We think that so far the theory is that it's going to make you age rather quickly with these Titan powers. And so that's a cost too. So is it worth it? The idea of is the price you pay worth what you get? That's a theme that's come up in this season. The idea of protecting someone, and is it insulting to try to protect someone when you know that's not what they want? And I'm looking directly at Levi to Erwin in episode 12 and Rod to Kenny in episode 7. Rod telling Kenny to go out and live the rest of his days in peace as long as he doesn't say anything. Levi telling Erwin to stay in peace and safety. He just can't go with him on the mission to get the truth. So it's like everything has a price that you pay and you can't have it all, right? And so it comes down to, from that, the idea of what decisions can you make that you don't regret. And that ties back to the whole first half of this season, right? So Armin and Jean's decision, Aaron's decision, Historia killing Rod, having to think, is this the right move? Am I making the right decision? Marlo and Hitch joining up the Survey Corps, risking their lives to do that. Niall during episode 5, he had to make a decision. It was hashtag no regrets for Niall when he chose to go and protect Erwin and go along with this coup d'etat. I mean, all these characters, all of our characters so far in season 3, part 1, have had no regrets moments where they've had to make a decision and live with it. And Aaron's just been our main character that's vocalized the difficulty of that sometimes, right? So Kenny and Levi even add to it, along with Kutchel and Uri. Uri had a decision to make. Kutchel had a decision. Kutchel could have used the Ackerman name, but she didn't. And so what price did she pay for that? Rod, Reese, and Sonis, they're all in the same boats. All the characters have had to make these decisions. And now I feel like whatever decisions they've made is going to come back and have repercussions in the rest of the series. So it's all good. It's good times, right? Good times. The rule of 3 continues. There are 3 branches of the military. There are 3 walls. I believe there are 3 daughters, possibly 3 queens. There's 3 sides to the story, right? There's humanity's side, there's the Titan Shifter side, and there's the Survey Corps and our main crew side. So interesting, right? And then we obviously I talked in season 2's recap about the trios. Then we had like Armin, Mikasa, and Aaron, and you have like Jean, Connie, Sasha. You have Hanji, Levi, Erwin. You have Bertolt, Reiner, and Annie. We now have Uri, Rod, and Kenny. There are other trios, so it's great, right? You could also put in Historia and Aaron, and I guess Historia, Aaron, and maybe Levi in that group. I don't know about that one. But with the idea of the trios comes this entire web of relationships, all the parallels. This whole series has been all the parallels. This season has paralleled so much. It's kind of crazy. Like all the parallels between the Titans, between the humans. There has been comparisons between Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, and Aaron, Armin, and Jean, right? So Aaron having to make a decision and live with it. Armin and Jean having to make decisions and live with it. That ties right back to Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie. Armin said in episode 2, he was like, we're not good people anymore. Just like Annie said. I would argue that if I'm going to compare them, it'd be like Aaron and Reiner, comparing those two, comparing like Jean and Bertolt, and comparing Armin and Annie, if I'm going to compare them. You have the comparisons between Historia and Rod. Historia and Rod, and Grisha and Aaron. If you think about it, Rod and Grisha were 2 parents that thought that their children were the saviors of humanity. And the actions that they took were to help protect humanity in their own perspectives. And they both resulted in their deaths. Grisha making Aaron turn into coordinate resulted in Grisha's death. Rod trying to convince Historia to become a Titan and take the coordinate powers back resulted in his death. It's just 2 parents who did whatever they could to try to ensure that their child was the savior of humanity. And it cost them their lives. The connection of Ymir with Historia and Carla and Aaron. Ymir telling Historia, being like, your life's important. Your life is yours to live. You should be proud of the life that you live. And that, whether you're special or not, you still should live your life to the fullest. And that kind of in an odd way mirrors Carla telling Aaron that it doesn't matter if you're great or not. You were born into this world, so you're special and your life has meaning. So you should live your life and do what you want no matter what, because you were born into this world and you are special. So while there's not a direct correlation between Ymir and Carla, I feel like the words that they say, both directly and indirectly, to Historia and Aaron are relaying the same message. They're both telling Historia and Aaron that they are special because they're alive. Their existence is valid, and they shouldn't throw away their lives for anyone else or feel like they are insignificant and not special. And I love that. I love that parallel. The parallels between Historia and Aaron, I've talked about it so much in this season, but the parallels between Historia and Aaron are amazing. I absolutely love it. It's made me grow closer to their characters. I'm kind of all about it, right? So, then the idea of what is humanity? What is humanity? What is humanity to the Titan Shifters? What defines resolve and justice? So, the Titans want to destroy humanity and do what? They want to get rid of all the humans. To what end? Why? What defines their resolve? I feel like we know what's defining humanity's resolve. By the end of this part 1, we know why humanity is fighting for what it has. We know why Aaron and the others are fighting for we know why Aaron, Armin, Mikasa, and the others are going to Shiganshina. We know why they're going to plug up Wall Maria. We know their motivations. We know their resolve. What we don't know at this point are the Titan Shifters, the warrior crew. What is their resolve? Why do they want to destroy humanity? That we don't know. And I feel like part 1's gave us humanity's side, and now I feel like part 2 is going to give us the Titan side. And I'm just waiting for it. And I feel like we couldn't get the Titan side until we knew enough about humanity, until we knew enough about the royal family and history and the history behind humanity. We needed to know all the backstory before the Titans could give us their side of the story and for it all to make sense, right? I feel like we had to have the events of season 3 part 1 to lead up to this part here. I feel like that was necessary. I feel like it was necessary, right? So yeah, it was expanded on this season. Frida calling humans sinners. Why do the Titan shifters consider humanity this way? Questions that need to be answered. Ymir's words to Historia about "to thine own self be true," the phrase "to thine own self be true." Ymir's words to Historia, and Historia not wanting to be controlled by others. I made the joke, like the Lonely Island song, where she's like, "I'm not a part of your system." Historia does not want to be controlled by anybody. She wants to be her own person, which I respect. I'm very curious to see how she as queen, how that goes. And I'm wondering if Ymir's going to find out if she's queen or not. I don't know. I feel like, this is kind of terrifying. We've not seen Ymir at all this season. We haven't seen Ymir with Bertolt Reiner and the Beast Titan, which makes me nervous. But Ymir's going to be really pissed off if she sees Eren. She's going to be mad. Because at the end of season 2, Ymir was like, "Eren, you have the coordinate powers. You're giving Historia a chance to have a free life. Why are you here? Like, you're supposed to be back inside the walls, keeping Historia safe." So I'm curious to know if Ymir is going to find out about all of this and about Historia becoming queen. I'm curious if she's going to be privy to all that by the end of season 3. I don't know. I'm really worried about Ymir because not seeing her in this makes me nervous. I'm really nervous about her not being present quite a bit. So the power and price of leadership. Uri's vision, Rod's paranoia, Kenny's dream, Erwin's gamble. Everyone is sacrificing and gambling to get what they want. Like Uri, we'll talk about being a slave to things. Uri was so dead set on having this paradise that he was willing to sacrifice his own life to give the power to Frida to see it through. He was willing to silence people and do whatever it took to get his vision to be a reality. Rod lived in such a state of paranoia and cowardice and fear that he let it control him, and it ended up consuming him to the point where he just blindly followed what he thought was the will of a god, the will of his brother and his daughter, and he just didn't try to change. The funny thing is, Rod could have supported the Survey Corps, and especially here, this is probably the frustrating part, is that Rod wasn't controlled by the will of the king, right? After Frida died and the will of the king was off the table, Rod could have supported Erwin and the Survey Corps to do what he originally set out to do. Rod originally wanted to stop the Titans and he wanted to free humanity, but he became so wrapped up in his brother's vision and his daughter's vision, and he viewed them so much as omnipotent beings that if they think it's right, it must be right, that once they were gone, he just kind of doubled down on everything. And instead of trying to help out the Survey Corps and live out his original mission and his original goals, he just kind of doubled down on everything he'd kind of fallen into with his paranoia and his fear and just abandoned that former self. And it's kind of crazy, right? Kenny's dream of becoming the coordinate was only to satisfy his own desires. It was for a selfish reason. He didn't want to become coordinate to help humanity. No, he wanted to become coordinate because he had known it made people compassionate and he thought it could help him do the same. Little did he realize he was already a compassionate person to begin with. Erwin's gambles. Erwin's whole life has been gambling, and he's been acting selfish to try to get his way throughout this entire series. Everything he's done has been to try to seek the truth, to validate his father beyond the grave, but to keep himself alive and make sure that he sees it through to the end, even if it sacrifices humanity. That whole line to Levi at the end of episode 12, where Levi's like, "You mean you'll stick out with this to find the truth? Your resolve to find the truth is more important than the victory of humanity." And when Erwin said yes, it's like, aha. Everything from season 1 makes so much more sense now. It's like, okay, Erwin has been wanting to know the secrets behind the Titans, the secret behind the walls all this time. So was he willing to let Stohess crumble to the ground to get that answer? Mm-hmm. If it meant getting Annie and getting answers, absolutely. Was he willing to sacrifice Levi's men to capture Annie and get those answers? Mm-hmm. Yep. Was he willing to charge into battle and let Aaron face Bertolt and Reiner so he could get those answers? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Erwin's been selfish, but like I talked about in episode 12 and episode 11, Erwin's selfishness comes with a lot of self-awareness, where Erwin knows he's being selfish. He realizes it. He realizes the flaws behind it, but he does it anyway because he feels like at the end of the day, humanity, himself included, need to know the truth. And I talked about in the last couple of episodes that comparing to Rod Reese and Rod, his selfishness too, and that he just kind of fell in line with his brother's vision and no longer. He kind of did the opposite of Erwin, to be honest. He kind of did the opposite of Erwin. Erwin sought out the truth and had resolved to finding the truth. Erwin buckled down on his own ideals from day one. Like from the moment his father died, Erwin had buckled down on his ideology and was like, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Rod did the polar opposite. Rod abandoned his dream. He abandoned his resolve to finding the truth and just fell in line with accepting that his brother and daughter were right and there was nothing he could do about it. Whereas Erwin did the polar opposite. It's kind of fascinating. Uri and Kenny. Uri selfishly chasing after his desire for a paradise and doing whatever it took to get there. And Kenny did the exact same thing. Kenny killed so many people to try to obtain the power of the coordinate, only for it not to work in the end. Grisha and Aaron, same way. Frida and Historia. Armin and Jean, they all did actions that kept them alive and kept their friends alive. And whether or not it was for the greater good or not is kind of called into question. So I like that Isayama is taking all of these characters and making them make decisions that are kind of based on their own personal agendas, but they can be tied into the overall picture of the show. But it's very true to life because we as humans like to claim that we're selfless. We're like, oh no, we're not selfish. We're not conceited. But we do lots of things in life that are selfish and conceited. And Isayama is just kind of acknowledging that that's a human quality. And most people are like that. So it's just human nature, right? But, oh my God, tying back to who is the enemy? Who is the enemy? Who knows? I still love Ymir's answer to that from season 2. Who knows? And this season, that concept of who is the enemy, it was first brought up in episode 15 of season 1. It was brought up again in season 2. And in this season, it's really expanded upon that the enemy is all based on perspective. What is your personal goal in life? Who do you care about? It's tying to Levi's words. Levi's like, I don't know what the right and wrong decision is. I just know who I care about, and I know that I can do whatever I can to protect those people and to achieve my own goals. And if your own goals are to benefit humanity as a whole, then that's great. But as we've seen with a lot of these characters, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just personal agendas. They're just trying to get, Zachary, for example. Zachary's whole agenda, Zachary was like, well, I really didn't care if the coup went over or not. I mean, eventually I was going to do this to those guys in the government. You just happened to be the quickest way to that. So Zachary's whole thing, he had a purpose and goal in life, and the enemy was just whoever was in the way of that. And in this case, it was the nobles. And the nobles included Gerald and Deltoff and the others in this case. So yeah, who is the enemy? The more we get into the series, the more complicated that question becomes and the more muddled the answer is. Because in season 1, it was easy to answer that question. Like, who's the enemy? Well, the Titans are. No question, right? And then by the end of season 1, it's like, well, the Titans are. And there's like a little hesitation there. And then when you get into season 2, you're like, who's the enemy? Well, maybe the Titans. Maybe the Titans, but also maybe the government. And then in this season, it's like, who's the enemy? Well, the Titans are still the enemy. The government's kind of the enemy. The royal family's kind of the enemy. But also, it just depends on what side you're on, right? So I like that moral ambiguity. I like that this season is making us question everything. And I feel like season 3, part 2 is going to be even more complicated. Y'all have told me it's going to be more complicated. I'm not looking forward to it being more complicated. But I feel like that moral ambiguity is at the center of what Isayama's writing is. and it's so true to life. And a lot of narratives, because it's so complicated and hard, a lot of narratives just steer away from it. They're like, we don't want to get into that complex of a situation. But Isayama's like, I do. So there we go, right? And with that idea of who the enemy is the concept of we are all slaves to something. And I love that Kenny says that. And the first thing I thought of when Kenny said that was tying back to that noble talking to Zachary during the interrogation, and the noble saying, I think it was Auril, saying, well, it won't matter because in a certain amount of time, you're going to lose your memories. You guys are just slave blood. Like, you're just slaves. Like, thinking that the nobles were above that. Like, they weren't slaves to things. But as Kenny points out, yeah, they are. Yeah, everybody's a slave to something. When you're trying to survive, you get drunk on whatever will help you survive in that moment, whether it's actual alcohol, whether it's women, whether it's family, whether it's power, whether it's children. Everyone has a certain vice that they use to get by in life. And especially when you're in survival mode, you have to have something to focus on, something to give you clarity, give you purpose. And for Kenny, it was power. But he notes what it is for other people as well. And that, yeah, everyone's a slave to something. Even Yuri was a slave. Yuri was a slave not only to his vision, but to the will of the Titan themselves. So I find that interesting, the concept of slavery in this series, because it's come up both literally and metaphorically. It's come up metaphorically in what Kenny was talking about. It's come up literally not only in what the noble was saying, but with Ymir and the kids being bought out and them talking about selling people and there being like human trafficking in this world. Like, there's been talk of literal slavery and also metaphorical slavery in this world, which I think is neat. So yeah, and then to kind of, we have the whole idea of the slavery aspect of it, which is a very negative connotation, and kind of flying in the face of that. It's episode 10 and 11 are like whiplash, right? Because episode 10, you get the perspective of Kenny, who calls himself human garbage, who is a very antagonistic character and has kind of a very bleak outlook on everything. And then episode 11 gives us the polar opposite, where you have Keith, who has a very bleak outlook on things. But by the end of the day, when you get to Carla's message, it's very hopeful. And Carla's message, I love it. It's probably, some of you commented, I agree entirely. It's masterful writing on Isayama's part, but Carla suggesting that you don't have to be great. Not everybody's going to be great, and it's okay. You're special because you're born into this world. And that tying back to episode 12 of season 1, that tying back to Aaron and his resolve and why he wants to go on beyond the walls, because he was born in this world. It's his birthright. It's like, Isayama, my dude. It's so wonderful. I absolutely love it. And it ties back to Grisha. It's kind of interesting because Carla makes the note about everyone being special because they were born. And Grisha makes the note that there are chosen ones and special ones in this world. So Carla and Grisha's ideologies are not totally in sync. They're kind of opposites in ways, but they help to complete this ideology of mankind, that there are special people in the world, but you don't have to be special to get by, right? And I think Keith's obsession was that Keith wanted to be special when he realized he didn't have to be, right? Grisha, the Survey Corps, Grisha seeing the Survey Corps as symbols of freedom and the need to be outside the walls. I love that. Again, it's tying to Aaron's resolve as well. Like, ever since he was a kid, he wanted to go outside the walls. I'm curious if Grisha believes that because he's originally from outside the walls, or if there's something else to that. I, again, need to know more about Grisha, and I don't know if we'll ever get more about Grisha. I'm hoping we do, but if we don't, then we can just endlessly speculate about it in season 3, part 2, and season 4. And then, yeah, I just put this on my notes. The idea of the lanterns and the chairs. I joked about it all season that the lanterns and the chairs had some kind of symbolic significance. But I do want to say this. That there is the lantern in the book, the monster that looks like a titan in the book with the lantern. And Nathalie said that some people actually did like a translation of a passage from that book, because it's like something to do with Japanese writing that's just been tweaked a little bit to make the language, and they could decipher it. And in the book, the Historia has, in that little segment where it has the monster with the lantern and the little girl, there's a part of the book that's translated, and I get kind of chills with it. It's like, the translation says, "It's cold every day, Don't catch a cold. Please be careful. Ominous, right? Ominous. Ominous. And I don't know if it's referring to, because when Historia and Ymir had their pinky promise pact and everything on top of it was on top of a snowy mountain. So maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know. Interesting. It's cold every day. Don't catch a cold. Please be careful. I'm going to keep those words in mind, Nathalie, because I don't know if we're ever going to go back to them or not, but that's interesting. And so then, yeah, the idea of lanterns representing an energy. When Rod turned into the Turkey Titan, it was like a ball of energy and him forming around it. Whenever the Titan shifters go from human to Titan form, there's a ball of energy or electricity. Is there something to that? We don't know for sure, right? We still need to know more from the Titan's perspective. So yeah, toast number 6. That was a long discussion about themes and about symbolism. Toast number 6 is going to be to Trout Caven and to the rest of the Kinney Squad, the other 34 members that died in episode 8. I feel bad for them. They all followed Kinney because of a dream that Kinney shared. Kinney talked about a world that would be different than the one they lived in, and they were miserable, so of course that seemed enticing. So everything they did for Kinney was not only for Kinney, but for this dream that they envisioned that they never got to see all the way through, which is pretty tragic. So I really expected more out of Trout, to be honest. I expected more out of Caven. I didn't know if she was like Kinney's lover or what the deal was, but I expected her to have a bigger role in the series. So the fact that she kind of just died is a little disappointing, but maybe there'll be more of her in the manga. I don't know. But in any case, R.I.P. to Trout Caven and to the rest of the Kinney Squad. You were a very intimidating force for the 10 episodes that you were all present in. Okay. I'm like running low. So, ranking episodes. I don't know how. I really don't know how. And I'll be honest with y'all. There are 3 episodes in this season, part 1, that I consider at the bottom. The bottom 3 episodes for me are the easiest to sort out. They are the bottom 3. They're the easiest to rank at the bottom. I love them. Still, that's the problem. I honestly loved every episode in part 1. There was not a single episode in part 1 that I was like, oh, I didn't like that episode. It was so-so. No, they're all really good. There are 3 that I think kind of sort themselves to the bottom because they are either transitional episodes or they don't have any like crazy moments to them, or they just sort themselves to the bottom because they're the least memorable. I guess. That's the only thing I can say. And I will say first and foremost, as I've said in the last 2 seasons, 1, this is all subjective. This is just my personal taste. There is no objectivity to this whatsoever. But 2, my opinions are very likely to change because my opinions have changed, and you'll see when I do the top 10 overall episodes, my opinions have changed since then. Let me tell you, my opinions have changed. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about the top 12 episodes for season 3, part 1. Number 12, I love this episode. There's a lot of things I like about it, but it sorts itself to the bottom for me pretty easily because it's just a transition episode. And that is episode 8, Outside the Walls of Orvud District. Episode 8's fine. We get Aaron's moment where the gang all surrounds him. He drinks the armor bottle. He saves everybody. We get the piecing together, Historia realizing she's going to have to kill Rod Reese. We get Rod Reese as the Turkey Titan. But it's probably the most transitional episode out of every episode in the season. And it's the easiest for me to place at the bottom of the list because I'm like, it's just setting stuff up. There's not really a lot of the only payoff we really get is that Aaron decides to make a decision for himself. He does the opposite of what he did in Crushing Blow. He makes the decision for himself and it ends up saving everybody instead of him not making the decision for himself and it killing a lot of people. So that's really the only major thing that happens for me in that episode. It's still really good. It still sets up lots of great ideas and questions, but it's just a transition episode. So for me, it falls to the bottom. Episode 3 is number 11, Old Story. I like Old Story. It's good because we get the backstory on Erwin. We get the backstory on Erwin, and we get Historia's backstory with her mom, and we get stuff set up there. We get Kenny killing Alma, and that being a plot point. But again, it's a setup of backstory. It's a setup of things that are going to have a payoff later. It sets up things that are going to have a payoff later, and it has more setup than episode 8, which is why it's number 11. But it just doesn't have quite the payoff and the memorableness that the episodes beyond it do. Episode 10 is number 4. Or number 10 is episode 4, Trust. My dog's like scratching the carpet. Number 10 is episode 4, Trust. I really like this episode. The twist that Marlo and Hitch join the Survey Corps side and help them get the general and everything. That was great. The line where the guy's like, "You're crazy," and Levi's like, "Maybe I am." Like that's one of my favorite lines of this season, when Levi just looks straight down at him. He's like, "Maybe I am crazy." It's like, oh my God, it's an Ackerman thing. All the Ackermans are crazy. But I love that episode. It sets up the whole dilemma with Erwin. I thought Erwin was going to die. I was getting paranoid. I had a whole memorial planned. Like, episode 4 was great. Someone noted it's the only episode that Aaron is not in at all. It's the only episode of Attack on Titan we've had so far that Aaron is not present whatsoever. We don't see Aaron in a flashback. We don't see Aaron in a conversation in any part of that episode, which is kind of crazy. And it's called Trust. So I find that curious. But yeah, so it's number 10. It's a good episode. It's just not as good as the other 9. Now, these other 9 episodes, I feel like once I start going through my list, y'all will be like, really? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but how do you rank these 9 episodes? They are absolutely wonderful for so many different reasons. Some of them are the best in the whole damn series. I don't know how to rank them. So I'm just, from where I'm at right now, and I've gone through this list like 5 times in the last 2 days, being like, I change my mind constantly. But for number 9 is going to be Smoke Signal. I'm debating. I'm questioning it now already. Number 9 is episode 1, Smoke Signal. It's a good episode. It's really good. It set the tone. It set the tone for the episode. It's just things got crazier after that. So I would argue that the introduction of Kenny, if there was one thing that would elevate it beyond number 9, it would be the introduction of Kenny, because Kenny's intro is so badass and insane. The last 5 minutes of that episode are crazy. It's a weird tonal shift from the end of season 2 into the start of the season. I really love it. I love the conversation with Historia, with Aaron. I'm already regretting putting it at number 9. So there you go. I would maybe switch it with this next one. Number 8 is episode 9, Ruler of the Walls. God, I'm regretting my decisions. No, number 9 is great. It's a great episode. Aaron finally gets his resolve back. Old Aaron is coming back, and that's going to relate to number 7. But Aaron's coming back. Historia kills Rod Reese. There's that epic moment where she stands up in the cart and declares herself as queen. The plan goes off without a hitch. It's a great episode. The disgusting, gruesome death of Rod Reese as the Titan was... It was great. It was a wonderful episode. I just didn't like it as much as the top 7. At this point, it's all subjective. At this point, you can reorganize these any way you like to. This is just personal preference. Number 7 is episode 12, Night Before the Battle to Reclaim the Wall. I could have dropped this down to number 8 or number 9. I think the more I think about it, it could drop down. What elevates it for me is not only the sense of ominous dread that it creates going into part 2, but the establishment of Erwin's death flags and Levi's burden. Episode 12 is all about Levi's burden. It's great because we get Aaron's resolve. Aaron's back to normal, it seems. He's having banter with Connie and Jean and Armin and Mikasa like normal. Aaron, it's like Aaron's back to his season 1 self, except now he has more context, more knowledge. He has more resolve and a reason to have that resolve. Aaron has come full circle to become this character we've wanted since season 1. And so I love that about this episode. But truly for me, episode 12 is a Levi episode because Levi's been given the serum. He's got the burden of having to use that serum if necessary. He has the burden of knowing that he's tried to convince Erwin to stay behind and he won't do it. The knowledge that Erwin's probably going to die. He's now heard Mikasa, Armin, and Eren lamenting about the past, and he now has that burden because he cares about Armin, Mikasa, and Eren. And so Levi's burden there's so much dread I feel for Levi's character in episode 12. It's like such the biggest sense of dread, and I don't know what to do with that feeling, but the emotions that this episode 12 leaves me with, it's ominous. It's this dark feeling like the calm before the storm. And so for that reason alone, I had to jut it up to number 7. And then from here, again, number 6. Number 6 is Reply. The coup d'etat, Pixis being badass, Niall stepping up, and Niall becoming a character that I really liked. Like Niall standing up as a man, a human of Wall Rose, him like helping out the coup d'etat, Zachary coming in and being revealed to be this scoundrel that has his own agenda, Erwin not dying, Erwin's gamble paying off, the government being overthrown, the whole surprise with all that, the setup of Sin. The episode was like, I was so giddy at the end of episode 5. I was so happy that I was just like elated. I like the whole episode 5 discussion. I was like, everything's great. La la la. Isayama threw us a bone. And then we go to my number 5 pick, which is episode 6, Sin. And then Sin. We're in the top 5 now. Episode 6, Sin. What a reveal. The reveal of Grisha gaining the coordinate power, that Eren has ate Grisha and has had him with him the whole time. The reveal of how the coordinate powers work, how the founding Titan powers work, the whole Reese family, everything, the tension, I noted in the episode that it wasn't my favorite, but it was definitely one of the most important episodes of the season because it gave us such information and such a reveal. But it's definitely my number 5. I would say of all these episodes, Sin is secured as my number 5 position. I'm like, I wanted it in the top 5, but it's not my top 3 or my top 4 favorite, but it's definitely number 5 just because of how important of an episode exposition wise it is and the tension and the atmosphere of it. It's insane. And it starts Eren on this journey of reflection and rediscovery of his own agency, his own self, that it's kind of insane. But yeah, number 5 is Sin. Now, from here on in, again, these top 4, I've honestly reworked these top 4 literally 3 or 4 times in the last few days because I think, oh, I love this episode. Nope, I love this episode. No, I love this episode. No, I love this episode. It's just hard. But number 4 is 7. It's Wish. And at the time that Wish happened, up until these other episodes, I had Wish as number 1. I love Wish. Wish is one of my favorite episodes in the series. I freaking love it. The music coming in for Historia breaking the vial, her like becoming a badass breaker of chains queen, her saving Eren, the speech, the tension, the comparisons of Rod Reese to Grisha, Eren's speech, Eren's voice actor giving it 120%, like crying and expressing how Historia needs to eat him. It's so damn good. But you know what? The top 3, they're even better than it. So I'm like, I had Wish over Pain for a long time. And then I went back a few days ago and I rewatched Pain. And overall, I think Pain is a better episode overall. Wish has that moment of Historia taking ownership and becoming a badass queen, I think is a bigger moment, but it doesn't quite equal the sum of the parts that Pain does. Pain is a tour de force from start to finish. Pain, the animation sequence alone, I was like, oh, Pain's in the... As soon as episode 2, as I watched it, as soon as I got done with my discussion and I stopped the video, I like sat there for a second and I thought, and I was like, oh, Pain's going to be in the top 3 of my ranking of the episodes. It is, isn't it? I just had convinced myself. I was like, no, Pain's going to be in the top 3. And it is. It's just so good. The animation sequence alone is amazing. The showdown between Kenny and Levi, establishing their dynamic. Levi putting the gun over the thing and firing it at Kenny. Kenny's whole like crazy uncle attitude, which it turns out he is a crazy uncle. Foreshadowing, turns out that was right. The idea, the philosophical discussions of the morality of killing and what Armin and Jean go through, the conversation in the warehouse, the lead up of Aaron and Historia actually being kidnapped and actually being taken. I didn't think that was going to happen. It was just surprise after surprise after surprise. And I love the episode Pain. It's just a really, really solid episode from start to finish. And you think at that point, you're like, there couldn't be an episode to top Pain. But there are two. There are two. When I watched episodes 6 and 7, Sin and Wish, I thought these are probably the best two back-to-back episodes in Attack on Titan. The best two back-to-back episodes. Maybe not the two best episodes in Attack on Titan, but the two best back-to-back. And I was wrong. I was wrong. Because they're number 5 and number 4 on this list. The two best back-to-back episodes are episodes 10 and 11. Are Friends and Bystander. I told y'all during the reactions that I love when mangakas and when writers do flashback episodes and do backstories for characters, because it gives them an opportunity to tell a fleshed out story that is self-contained. It doesn't have to connect directly to the plot of what's going on in the present. It doesn't have to directly connect to the past. If it does, great, that's a plus. But it can be a self-contained little story about these characters to help flesh out those characters and show their importance. And the ones we got for Kenny and Keith, amazing. So it was really hard, but number 10, Friends, is number 2. Episode 10, Friends, is number 2. Kenny's backstory is amazing. It's Kenny, his character is one of the best characters I think Isayama's written. He was such a fun antagonist. He was fun. He was dangerous. He was intimidating. Like from episode 1, you knew, okay, if Levi's scared of this guy, he's probably serious. But then when he proved it, you were like, in episodes 1 and 2, you were like, oh crap. And then throughout episode 3, when he killed Alma, throughout the remaining episodes he was alive, Kenny constantly proved that he was a threat and to be taken seriously. But Kenny had a soul. He had compassion. He had depth. We got to see his character. We got to see the facade that he put up, and then we got to see that facade torn down. We got to see him frustrated. We got to see him sad. The scene where he slides down the wall after finding out that Kutchel's dead, that's his sister that he spent all this time finding, that he tried to convince her not to have Levi, and she did anyway. And then he took on Levi and realized that he loved this little runt. Kenny's an amazing character. And Isayama does a masterful job of telling this self-contained story of this character that somehow Kenny has impact not only on Levi's character, but with Uri, with Rod, with Historia, with Aaron. Like, Kenny has so much impact that you're like, damn, okay, Isayama, amazing. And so when you see all that culminate into episode 10, and then it has significance because it gives Levi the vial of the serum, it's like tying that character and their relevance into the main story. And I was like, well, at the time I watched episode 10, I was like, well, nothing can top this. I was like, I left 2 spots open on the chart here on my rankings. I was like, I'll leave the 2 spots open, but I had episode 10 as number 1. And then Bystander happened. Episode 11 is my favorite episode of this season. Episode 11 is amazing. It is, I would argue that episode 11 is perfection from start to finish. We get the tie-in with Historia and Aaron. We get Armin and Jean talking. We get the setup of Aaron and Historia. We get the resolution of their developed friendship. Mikasa's thrown in there. We get all of that. And then that's only the first third. Like I said in the reaction, if we had just had an episode of just that, and it was just like the quiet before the storm, I would have been fine with it. But no. I was like, well, Isayama's done a masterful job of explaining Kenny as a character. He possibly can't do that again. And then he follows up with Keith, a character we've known since season 1, that has been on the sidelines and that is basically the catalyst for this entire series happening, is Keith. Keith is the cause of everything. He's the cause of Grisha getting inside, Grisha meeting Carla. Aaron probably wouldn't exist if Keith didn't exist. And the worst part is Keith doesn't realize the impact he's made. I kept thinking of watching Bystander. I kept thinking of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And in It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart's character, he keeps thinking that his life is insignificant. He gets depressed and he commits suicide because he believes that his life is worthless. And he feels like he's inconsequential. And then Clarence, this angel, saves Jimmy Stewart's character and he shows him he's like, no, your life has impact, and it impacts so many people that without you, the world would be so vastly different, that you are significant. And the whole moral behind It's a Wonderful Life is that every life is important and valuable. And it makes me so emotional because I think back to this episode of Bystander, and it goes back to Carla's message. She's like, no, Keith, you don't understand. You don't have to be great. And in that moment, she's talking about Aaron, but she's also kind of talking about Keith too. She's like, listen, you don't have to be great. The fact that you're born makes you special. And it's that message that's so important. It's like the most heartwarming, powerful, inspirational message I think this series has given. And it's through Carla's words. And it's so powerful and just poignant. And it's like, ugh. And I feel like it's no coincidence that Isayama gives us that message before we're about to enter the darkest part of the series, probably. Because we're about to go right into the biggest battle this series has had so far. And I feel like Isayama's given us that hopeful message right before he just throws us off the cliff. He's like, well, things are about to get dark and gruesome and terrible, but before we go into that, here's this really hopeful, inspiring message. I hope you remember it. So, it's Bystander. It's Bystander. I've thought about it a lot over the past few weeks, and after watching episode 11, I was like, nah, it is. So that leads to the idea of what is the top 10 overall episodes in the series. And so that became a lot harder, right? Because I've changed my mind on several episodes. I've changed my mind, surprising no one, in my top 10 episodes. So number 10 in the whole series as a whole so far is season 1, episode 22, The Defeated. I still maintain that that's an amazing episode, and rewatching it and seeing Erwin and how him and Levi and them suffer after the defeat of the Levi Squad being killed. Watching episode 22 and then watching episode 12 of season 3 and seeing episode 22 of season 1 and seeing the people yelling at Erwin and like kicking him through the mud and everything being so downtrodden and like depths of despair. And then you watch the night before the battle to reclaim the wall, and it's like the people cheering them on from Trost and saying, go for it, you can do it, and Erwin like shouting in the sunlight and the twilight. It's such a stark contrast. It's kind of crazy, but I love that episode. Number 9 is season 1, episode 21, Crushing Blow. That would be the episode for there. Crushing Blow it's again tied right before Defeated. It's such an important episode because it's Aaron having his first major loss. It starts his character evolution, I would argue. We lose the Levi Squad. It's Annie versus Aaron. There's like all this tension. It's kind of crazy. I've pushed it above the other episodes. Crushing Blow is like my favorite episode from season 1 now. It was still such a wild episode. It and The Defeated, they're my top 2 from season 1. So they kind of fit. It's funny because they're the only episodes from season 1 that are on this list. And I feel like after season 3, part 2, and season 4, season 1 may not be in the top 10 anymore, which is fine. It's just kind of crazy, right? But I wanted to represent season 1, but it's at the bottom of the list for those 2 episodes. Episode number 8 is in season 2, episode 10, Children. Children is still such a crazy episode, and I put it as number 8 because not only do we get the whole reveal that not only the reveal that Bertolt likes Annie, but we get the reveal about the Titan lore, about Ymir's backstory, the whole thing with the Northern Lights deity, the beautiful music, the swelling, the theme, and then we get the setup for what is number 7, which is season 2, episode 11, Charge. I had Charge as my number 1, and I told y'all it was an indisputable episode choice. No. It's my number 7. I love Charge. I still love Charge. Charge is probably my favorite action episode outside of Pain. I would argue Charge, Pain has better animation and has bigger discussion value, I think, in Pain. But Charge is great as far as an action-oriented episode. As far as a straight-up battle episode goes, I love Charge. It's great. Armin's whole becoming a demon to face down Bertolt and Reiner, Mikasa's confrontation with Bertolt, the idea of the squad getting around Bertolt on top of Reiner's hands. Erwin getting his arm eaten off and still telling them to charge forward. It's a masterful episode. I love it. Number 6 is season 3, episode 7, Wish. Again, badass Historia becoming queen. That in that moment, from that moment on, from Wish on, she was my queen. Even though she wasn't officially coronated and crowned, she was a queen at that point, and I would not accept anything less. Number 5 is, I would argue, number 5 is season 3, episode 2. It's Pain. We're in the top 5 now. And as I'm looking at this list, I'm reconsidering it. Of course, I would say the top 5 of my favorite episodes overall in the series. You could move these episodes around. I would say it would depend on the day and depend on my watching, but I would argue that the top 5 you can move around. So if you argue with me on these, I totally get it. But number 5 is Pain from this season, part 1. Just for all the reasons that I stated, it's great. I would tie it with my number 4 pick, which is Warrior from season 2, episode 6. I love Warrior. It's great. Warrior's kind of bumped itself back up for me. I still love the reveal of Bertolt and Reiner, the tension, Aaron saying, "You damn traitors," like the lead up. Warrior, I would argue that Warrior has probably maybe the most tense and on the edge of my seat so far in this series, even if it's just for the reveal of Reiner and Bertolt. It's so good. I love Warrior. It's my number 4. Number 3, I would argue number 3 is Friends, which is episode 10. I really like Friends as an episode. Kenny's backstory, it all tying together. The theme of Kenny trying to seek compassion when he's had it all along. I love it. My top 2 are tied. It's really hard. Number 2 and number 1, I'm going to tie them together, and that's Scream and Bystander. I feel like they go hand in hand. I feel like Scream and Bystander go hand in hand. Episode 12 of season 2, Scream. I love that episode because I feel like Scream and Bystander are such perfect episodes, and I've gone back. I had Scream down lower in my list when I did the season 2 recap, but I've gone back and watched it, and I'm like, no, this is such a perfect episode because it has the action in it. Hannes dies. Aaron has that moment where he breaks down and cry laughs and just goes, like, completely lets go of his emotion, and has, like, it also kickstarts his evolution again. Crushing Blow started Aaron's evolution as a character, and episode 12 of season 2 took it up to the next level. And then season 3, part 1 just completely went from there. But Scream is such a great episode. The coordinate powers unlocking, Mikasa's speech to Aaron, the animation, Armin saving Jean, Erwin saving Aaron and Armin, them all getting out. It just, well, Erwin saved them in episode 11 in Charge, and then the resolution. I feel like as far as a series finale, as a season finale goes, Scream has the best season finale so far. It all like just bookended and had perfect resolution, page turned, book closed. It was just so nicely done. But then there's Bystander. And Bystander, I think, is a perfect episode too. So I would argue Scream and Bystander are pretty perfect episodes from start to finish. Warrior, Friends, and Pain, they're right up there. Those top 5, I could rewatch any of those 5 episodes any day of the week and be perfectly fine. I love those 5 episodes. So again, if you have disputes, I understand. Comment below. I want to talk to y'all about them. I will probably change my mind by the end of part 2. But with that being said, let's do toast number 7. And that is Rod Reese from episode 9. Rod Reese, holy crap. Where do I even start? I have had a tumultuous relationship with Rod Reese, and of all the characters, I'm going to set this down. Of all the characters in this show that we've talked about in this series in the comments, I feel like there's been more controversial discussions about Rod Reese than anybody. And the reason being, Isayama loves to play the game of, oh, you think you know this character? No, you don't. And Rod Reese is the prime example because from the moment we met him in the start of this season, every episode we have learned new things about him, and my opinion of him has changed. And I felt bad by the time we got to episode 8. I was starting to feel bad because episode 6 and 7, I was like, this guy's dirt. And then episode 8, I was like, I kind of feel bad for him. And then episode 9 happened, and I was like, well. And then episode 10 happened and I was like, so there was more to him than what I thought. Well, now I feel bad. Because at the end of the day, Rod was a character that is very human. He started out with this resolve and this mission to stop the Titans, and his dreams were crushed by his father and his brother and his daughter, and the king's will basically became his own. And he gave up on his dreams and just thought, well, who am I to question a god? And he just followed along with the vision that had been laid out by his brother, his daughter, and his father before him. And in the end, he ended up failing all of them. He couldn't live out the dream. He became a Titan even though he said he wasn't going to. He was a coward. He killed people. He couldn't own up. He had the ability to go back and chase his dreams again, but he gave up on them. So Rod was a very human character. And when we see in the flashes of his life before Historia's eyes that he had been imprisoned, that he had lost complete faith in his family and had sought out Alma, that he saw himself as he very much like Keith saw himself as a bystander, that he could do nothing. All he could do was pray for the right decisions to be made. And that's all he could do. There was like no free will involved. And I commented that I thought that Rod was kind of a representation of organized religion to a little bit. And I still think he is to a degree, because he kind of just follows along this blind faith. But even though he has free will, he doesn't really do a lot with it. He just trusts that the will of the king will prevail. And he doesn't really try to foster any of his own free will again, even when he could, right? So Rod's a complicated character, and I feel bad because he was like D rank at the start of this season, and now he's kind of like floating between B and C. I'm like, I feel bad for him now. So I am sad that he died. It was inevitable that he was going to, because it's kind of like he's the king. If Historia's gonna take over, it was gonna have to happen. But at the end of the day, I did feel bad for him. So R.I.P. Rod Reese. His death was extremely gruesome. It's far more gruesome than I think he deserved. But at the end of the day, he definitely got the short end of the stick. And for that, we toast you, dude. Okay. And now we're on ships. Season 1, I was clamoring for romance. I was clamoring for romance. I wanted it to happen. I was like, let's get some romance up in Attack on Titan. And in season 2, it started to bloom. I was like, oh, Bertolt likes Annie? What is this? We've got ships. Things are happening. Season 3, part 1, it's like, yeah, there's romance at a cost. And that cost is you're probably going to die. So, damn, there was actually romance in this season, but a lot of it was like off-screen flashback people that are dead that were in romantic relationships. And it's like, oh no, Isayama, what are you saying? So, romance has a cost. It's not really shipping, but I find a connection between Kenny and Caven and Pixis and his female subordinate. I don't ship Kenny and Caven, and I don't ship Pixis and the female subordinate, obviously, but I definitely see that there's a connection there. Like, both Kenny and Pixis, they like having that female subordinate there to keep them in line. Pixis is kind of a little bit of a womanizer. He's like, man, I'd love a female Titan to eat me and whatnot. I really thought that was foreshadowing that Annie was going to kill him way back when. It may still happen. He's still in the walls. Who knows? But I find the parallels of Kenny and Pixis both being characters that like having female characters. It's the Spike Siegel thing where he's like, I love a woman that can kick my ass. It's that mentality, right? But so Ymir and Historia have been my OTP, but Historia and Eren? I talked about this in the episodes. I'm still like OTP. Ymir and Historia, when they are together, it is an OPT. OTP. They are paradise together, right? They're the paradise that Uri envisioned. Ymir and Historia. But I'm not gonna lie, this entire series, this season, has made me really start to root for Eren and Historia, because not only if they just end up being BFFs, I'm totally fine with it. But Eren rarely interacts with female characters in like any degree beyond just talking to Mikasa. Like Eren doesn't really have a relationship with Sasha. He kind of has a relationship with Hanji, but Hanji's kind of gender fluid, so it's kind of not really a feminine relationship that Eren has with her or Sasha. He doesn't really have any relationship with any other female characters in the show. It was literally just Carla and Mikasa, and then Historia comes along. And Historia and Eren, they have lots of parallels between each other, but Historia is like one of the only characters that Eren actually opens up to and talks to, like on a personal level. Eren, I feel like throughout this entire series, Eren cares about Mikasa. He really does. He does care about Mikasa. There is no question. But I have not seen Eren have a down-to-earth, deep conversation with Mikasa like he has with Historia alone. Now, has Eren had big conversations with Mikasa and Armin? Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's been always Mikasa and someone else. But Eren has had several conversations with Historia in this season where it's just been the two of them. And they've really opened up to each other and expressed their concerns and what they value and how each other are good people. Like, I'm like, Isayama, what we saying? So I'm kind of on board with Eren and Historia. If Ymir dies and Historia can't be with her OTP, then be on the BFF train with Eren. I'm all for it. So I love that there was this conversation. Christopher Peterson said, is Levi going to have the talk with Eren and Historia? And I was like, oh my God, no. Because Christopher was saying, you said in the comments that you were from Sweden, and in Sweden, the age of consent is 15. In the United States, it's 18. So these characters are 15. So in the US, they're not really of consensual age yet, but in other countries they are. So who knows? I guess as long as they're safe about it. Oh God, are we really gonna have sex talk in Attack on Titan? I don't know. I don't know, y'all. There have been babies born in Attack on Titan, so why not? But yeah, the idea, I want y'all to think about this. The idea that Levi has to have the talk with Eren and Historia is about the funniest thing I've ever heard of on this show. So thank you, Christopher. That I laughed for like a solid half hour about that concept. I was like eating my lunch being like like just laughing about it for half an hour. It was great. But yeah, so if we're going to talk about Eren and Historia, I want to bring up Mikasa and Eren. I really feel bad for Mikasa in this season. I do. And Christopher Peterson talked about this as well in the last episode. And I kind of agree with him on this. But Mikasa, at the end of season 2, in episode 12, Mikasa, her and Eren had that moment. And Eren made the promise. He's like, I'll protect you. I'll wrap that scarf around you as many times as we need to. And I was like, okay, we're developing this relationship. But Mikasa, she's still in mother hen mode. She's still in protect mode with Eren. And I feel like, and Christopher noted that Mikasa, I feel like Christopher said that he felt like Mikasa had accepted that her and Eren were not going to be a thing. And so since she didn't see that future for them, she was just going to accept the fact that her role was now to protect Eren and keep him safe. And I don't know. I feel like Eren and Mikasa could still be a thing, but she needs to lay off of Eren just a tiny bit. Like Historia gets onto Eren and she calls him a crybaby and she calls him out. But Historia's honest with him and she doesn't coddle him. Historia does not coddle Eren at all. She's like, get it together, let's do this. And I think Eren respects that. Mikasa's problem is that she tries to do everything for Eren and protect him and kind of coddle him. And Eren doesn't like that. Eren's whole deal is he wants to prove to Mikasa that he's strong enough to protect her. And so it's hard for Eren to do that when she's constantly on his back about protecting him. And so I feel for Mikasa because I know that she cares about Eren a great deal and she wants to keep him safe. And I feel for her because I want Eren and Mikasa to have the conversations that him and Historia are having. Mikasa's just not letting it happen. And I'm like, girl, if you just edged off an inch and let Eren talk to you and quit coddling Eren and treating him more like he is strong enough to do things, kind of like what Historia does, then yeah, I think that you guys could have that conversation, that relationship. It's just not happening yet. So I feel bad for her. I do. And I don't know. We're about to go into like a battlefield. And so I'm like, Mikasa, Historia's not there. Historia is not there. She's staying in the castle because she's the queen. But I'm like, Mikasa, I worry that Mikasa, if something happens to Eren, she's going to like let her emotions get the better of her. And I'm worried about that. I really am. I feel like Mikasa is like on edge right now. Like she's on eggshells at the moment. And I'm worried that if something happens to Eren, Mikasa's emotions are going to get the better of her and she's going to make a mistake. So, because Mikasa has been known to do that. Whenever Erin's involved, she tends to let that override her own judgment. And Levi's called her out about it. And Levi's going to be there with her. So I'm like, I just worry. I worry a lot. Sasha and Connie are chaotic gremlins. Holy shit. They have become a pair in this season. They have become a dynamic duo. I love Sasha and Connie in this season. They are the gremlins spilling the tea. Jean's in there too, but they are the gremlins spilling the tea. The fact of Sasha comforting Connie from the start of episode 1 and episode 2 when they were talking about the village, the start of that, Connie and Sasha being together this whole time, Connie holding Sasha back during the final dinner scene, like, it's so great. Like, I really love Sasha and Connie. I will talk about them down at the characters. I'm worried about both of them a lot. I am worried about both of them. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I definitely am rooting for them as a couple. I'm like, please don't be like Franz and Hannah. Please don't end up like them. Please don't be like Franz and Hannah and don't die. Please don't. But yeah. If we're on the subject of dead characters, though, Carla and Grisha, their relationship. Carla and Grisha, I loved the flashback of Grisha falling in love, of Carla falling in love with Grisha because he saved her and her family. And that moment where she's like hugging him and he's like patting her head, like, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And her like falling in love with him and then them getting married and having Aaron. It's like, it's so cute. I absolutely loved it. I was like, like I would read some Carla and Grisha fan fiction because it's canon. That's the thing. It's canon. So I'm like, yeah. I hope there's Carla and Grisha fanfic out there. I want to see fluffy moments with them before their sad deaths, But I really like the Carla and Grisha flashback that we got in episode 11. It was much needed to compensate for all the pain that we've experienced with their characters and their fates so far. There was a lot of like rare pairs that I think kind of sorted themselves out this season. And maybe it's just me being like, I want that to be a ship because I want romance in this series because I'm a romantic at heart. So watching a series like Attack on Titan where there is virtually no romance, anything, I'm like, I will gather up the crumbs that Isayama gives me and like chomp them down. So obviously Historia and Eren, Carla and Grisha, I was eating that up this season. Mikasa and Historia, I feel like that moment that Mikasa saves Historia and grabs her and they like look into each other's eyes for like 2 seconds, I feel like an entire AO3 tab was just invented the moment that happened. People were like just scrambling their computers being like, Mikasa and Historia. Again, it's like the idea of the Ackerman protecting the royal family. The ship writes itself. So I don't know. I feel like that's a rare pair. It's like that one moment. And then in episode 11, we see her confronting Historia with like a little hint of jealousy. And I was like, ooh, love triangle, perhaps? I don't know. But, I talked about Ymir and Historia being OTP. We need to talk about if Ymir and Historia are an OTP, the OG OTP is Kenny and Uri. I'm all on board the male love male ship of the boys, the man's love ship of Uri and Kenny. I'm all on board with this. No, I am here for it. There's just something about that dynamic of Uri, who is like the quiet, calm, rational, compassionate person who's in love with this piece of shit. Kenny's not. He's our trash king. I love the idea of Kenny being this like tsundere garbage king that's like, I don't need you, I don't need love. And then Uri being like, I'm all about love and I'll show you compassion. And then Uri and Kenny going from enemies to lovers. And it's like Levi and Erwin, They were enemies and then they became lovers over time. Tale as old as time. And it's the idea of the Titan and the noble, The Titan and the noble. Ymir's the Titan that loves the noble, Beauty and the Beast. Uri is the noble, the royal that loves, or he's the Titan. In this case, Uri's the Titan that loves Kenny, who's the noble and in this situation. So I really, on Twitter, I had said that I was rooting for Kenny and Uri and that they were one of my new favorite pairings. And I got sent a picture. It was a comic strip. There were no spoilers. Some of you send me like pictures on Twitter and they're spoiler free. So I'm like, thank you, because I have no access to Attack on Titan fan art or fan fiction. So you all have no idea how hungry I am. I'm getting close to season 4. I'm getting hungry for fan art and fan fiction. It's palpable. You all do not know the frenzy I'm going to go on when I'm caught up with this series. I'm going to be like on hiatus from social media and Discord and everything for like a week, because I'm just going to be like a free for all. I have no access to fan art or fan fiction for Attack on Titan. So occasionally people will send me like a crumb and I'm like, yes. I'm like a junkie. It's bad, y'all. But someone sent me a comic strip and it's of Mikasa, Levi, and Kenny playing poker cards. And the ones cheering them on are Uri, Erwin, and Aaron. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so cute. And like Uri has little pom-poms and he's rooting Kenny on. I'm like, I can't. Again, all the fan fiction I will look up. All the fan fiction I will look up when it's time. I just can't, y'all. I can't express to you how excited I am to be able to look at Attack on Titan fan art and fan fiction. I cannot tell you. I can't express in words. There was a brief moment in this series where there was like a Levi Hanji moment. I don't ship Levi and Hanji personally. I view Hanji more as like either Hanji as like asexual or maybe with Moblit. But I saw it. I saw that moment. And there was like a little glance that Levi and Hanji exchanged to each other. So if you all liked that pairing based on that, I see it. I view Levi and Hanji more as like a sibling best friend relationship more than anything. But those of you that ship them, I totally understand it. I get it. Armin and Jean. After episode 2, I was like, okay, these two characters, Armin and Jean, they're together a lot this season. They have a lot in common. They both have a lot of things happening to them throughout the season. It's like, okay, fine, that makes total sense. I get it. If you ship them, I still think they're more friends. But again, like Levi and Hanji, I see the ship. Sonus and the King. I put that down as like a rare pair. Sonus is all about that king, all about Uri, all about the king's will. Sonus was. It's like Hanji and Titans, you know? I want to just bring this up. I have a big, in all caps, I have the word no with like 7 O's behind it. But I'm just going to say, if somebody was shipping Erwin and Historia, it's gross. No. But there's probably someone out there that is shipping them. And I'm like, fine, if that's your rare pair, I'm not quite about it. I view Erwin more as like a foster father figure to Historia at this point, if he makes it out of part 2 alive. I don't think he will, but if he somehow makes it out alive and comes back to the wall, I could see him being like a father figure to Historia. But I don't think that's going to happen. But speaking of Erwin and Levi and their angsty, complex relationship, at the end of season 2, I was questioning it because Erwin had that creepy smile on his face. At the time, we didn't know the context of the smile, and I was like, what the heck's up with Erwin? Now we know Erwin's been seeking the truth this entire time. And so finding out that the Titans are actually humans was one step closer to him finding the truth, and that's why he had the creepy smile. This season has really explained to me and really shown me that Levi cares a lot for Erwin. A lot. To the point where Levi is willing to lie to make Erwin stay behind so he doesn't get hurt. That's how extreme it is. And in the end, I felt so bad for Levi during episode 12 because he wants Erwin to stay behind and live. And Erwin's like, nope, my life's a gamble. I'm a gambling man. And that, again, is tying to, I was talking about Erwin's character throughout this season. Erwin's character is the type of person that he's never going to settle down. He's so obsessed with the truth. He's willing to risk his own life and the lives of everyone else just to get to that truth. And so there is no settling down for him. So I imagined in that moment when Levi was telling Erwin to just stay behind, don't come with us. I was imagining if Erwin and Levi were married and Levi was Erwin's spouse, saying, don't leave, don't go, stay and keep safe. And Erwin being like, can't do it. It's case in point, right? I'm really worried because this season has set up Erwin and Levi's relationship. There's been callbacks to No Regrets. There's been callbacks to season 1. There's been callbacks to the OVAs. I'm like, I feel like Erwin is going to die, and that is going to crush Levi. It is going to crush him because Levi has lost everyone at this point. He's lost his mother, his uncle, his friends, his squad. He has lost so many people, and now he has Hanji, he has Erwin, and he has his squad, and that's all he has to hold on to. And if he loses Erwin, Erwin's like a key piece of that. I feel like Isayama episode 12 was setting up Levi with all this burden and all of this dread, because Isayama's going to be like, yeah, you guys like Levi? He's had some fun this season, hasn't he? Yeah, what if we just gave him lots of pain? And I'm like, stop! He's like, you wanted to see more Levi. You didn't see him all of season 2. Now you're going to get him. And I'm like, it's like, be careful what you wish for. That's this entire series, right? So yeah, the Ackermans and their ships. The Ackermans need somebody to protect. Levi found his purpose through Erwin. Mikasa finds her purpose through Eren. Kenny found his purpose through Uri. They all need people to protect. And it's just ironic that in Kenny's case, it happened to be a royal family member that, you know, caused his whole family to dissent from them in the first place. It's funny how that all works out. But yeah, Bertolt and Reiner had some moments together in the end of the season. Bertolt still has a big thing for Annie, though. And we know that because they tried to convince the Beast Titan to let them go back and get her. And Beast Titan was like, nope. Annie comes later. We got to get Eren first. So I'm like, I still feel like Bertolt still likes Annie. If you ship Reiner and Bertolt, I still get it, especially from what we got this season. And that shot on the end of the wall where Bertolt and Reiner are just sitting there together. It's crazy. So we shall see, right? And then the would-be ships that we haven't really explored. Hanji and Moblit. I can kind of see Hanji and Moblit in this season. Moblit really stepped up his game, right? Moblit was like, from grabbing Sanus's wrist to helping out Hanji, to helping out to getting Hanji out there during episode 8, to being there at the end of the episode going into battle. Moblit, he really had it going on this season. I got death flags for him, but I'm worried that he kind of showed up this season and now he's going to be an easy target to pick off in part 2, but we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, if you ship Hanji with Moblit, I see it. I still view Hanji as asexual. I view her and Moblit and her and Levi as like best friends, but I can understand if you ship them. Absolutely. And then I guess Alma and Rod were explored in this season, even though we got more with Alma and Rod than we did with him and his own wife. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a very good ship. And then Kutchel. I am curious. Isayama's going to do either one of two things. And I kind of hope he does the former. Either we'll never find out who Levi's father is. That's the point. Levi's father's not special. It doesn't matter who Levi's father is. The point was that Kutchel didn't use her name as an Ackerman. She used the faux name Olympia, and which I still think is like a Titan reference. She used that name. It doesn't matter who Levi's father is. The point is that Levi's an Ackerman, and that blood comes through. Kutchel tried to deny Levi his birthright and not give him a last name, but it didn't matter. He was still an Ackerman, and it still came out. He still had the power, right? So I hope that that's what Isayama does. I hope we never find out who his father is. I hope that that's the point. The point is that Levi is an Ackerman, that he's related to Kenny and Kutchel, that's the point. We never find out who his dad is. It's not important. We don't need to know. But the other option is that his dad is important, or we will find out who he is. And I kind of don't want that to happen, but we'll see, right? I don't know. I kind of want us never to find out who that person is, you know? But anyway, speaking of Ackermans, it's time for our last toast of the evening, the last death of the series, and he's getting 2 shots for this. Absolutely. 100%. It's Kenny Ackerman. Kenny, we're going to do one for Kenny and one for Kutchel. Both of them were confirmed dead in episode 10. Kutchel was off screen. We'll do Kutchel first. Kutchel was off screen. Kutchel was beautiful. In that shot of Kenny seeing her with baby Levi, she was beautiful. And it's so tragic that she got sick and died, and that Kenny was just too late to save her. That he ends up saving Levi, but he was too late to save her. It's really tragic. I really feel bad about it, but she was such a pretty woman, and we didn't get enough of her in this series, and I'm really sad about that. But the fact that she had the choice, Kenny said that she wants to keep the baby. She's pregnant and wants to keep it. It's like, thank God that Kenny didn't convince her to not keep Levi, because I love Levi as a character, but Kutchel, girl, you were beautiful and your death was sad and horrific, but you did not die in vain because Levi was spared by your brother. I really did like Kutchel a lot for what we got with her. And then, yeah, I've got just a hair more. We'll save that for the end. And then the other toast is to Kenny Ackerman, a character that I liked him from episode 1. I thought he was such a powerful presence, like energetic, charismatic, crazy, the crazy uncle motif, fully fleshed out. And then episode 10 happens, and you're like, well, damn, he's a character with lots of complex motivations and a tragic backstory, and he basically lived out a tragic life, and it was only redeemed in the final waking seconds of his life. Awesome. So, Kenny Ackerman, dude, you gave us exposition. You gave us badass moments in episodes 1 and episode 2. You gave us badass moments in episodes 6 and 7. You gave us an amazing episode 10, and your story is probably one of the best single character arcs of a character in the series so far that Isayama has given us. So Kenny Ackerman, we toast to you, R.I.P. dude. So, this is a long recap. I'm down. There we go. There's the end of it. Okay. So, oh buddy, we still got stuff to talk about. Oh God, I'm over 3 hours. Awesome. You all knew this was happening. This is no surprise. So I'm not doing a character tier ranking chart like I've done the last 2 seasons yet. I am going to save that for the end of season 3 because my only reason of doing so, I was going to look it up today and then I thought, oh no, what if there are new characters introduced in part 2 and they're on that chart? I didn't want to be spoiled. So again, I look up nothing. I just see the episodes and that's it, unless people send me things. So I did not look up the character chart for season 3 because I didn't want to be spoiled. So I am going to talk a little bit about character tier rankings, but for the most part, we're only going to do the actual tier that you'll see there at the end of part 2. So overall, the rankings, the characters that raised up from the rankings, I had Rod down in D rank. He's probably like in B rank. Rod is. I felt bad for him. It's B rank is my pity rank. I'm like, fine. If this appeases everybody. No, he's probably B rank, Rod is. Keith, I went back and looked. Keith was like C rank in season 1. Oh no, he's A rank now. I'm like, Keith is A ranked. I was like, dude, that backstory, the fact that he's the catalyst for all of this, Keith is A ranked for sure. Carla she was an angel of A rank. She may be an angel of S rank now. Carla is just a saint. She's literally wonderful. And then Grisha, I did Grisha really dirty. I did Grisha and Niall dirty in season 1 up through this season. Grisha and Niall, they were done dirty. I'll put Zachary in B rank, but Niall and Grisha, they've moved up from their DC rank up to A rank. Niall and Grisha both A rank. There's still some mystery to Grisha, and I hope we find out more about him in part 2. I feel like with him being a Titan Shifter, we will, because the Titan Shifters probably know him. So I feel like more about Grisha is gonna come out. We just don't know it yet. But for right now, I'm like, nah, Grisha's A rank and Niall's A rank. I'm like, you dudes, amazing, right? So, dog is like barking here. So yeah, they're probably my biggest character changes. And then Levi and Hanji went back to S rank. For right now, they're back to S rank. It took like all of 1 episode for them to go from A rank back to S rank. I was like, well, that didn't take long. But yeah, everybody else is pretty much the same, the character-wise, I think so. As far as characters I wanted to see more of, from season 2, I wanted to see more Erwin, Levi, and Aaron with the crew. We got it. We did it. We did it, y'all. Jean had taken a back seat in season 2. He kind of does in this season, but towards the end, Jean starts to come back, which has me worried. Anytime characters get prominence in this series, I start to get a little worried and nervous because I'm like, is Isayama giving them prominence so that he can kill it off and it be more impactful? I don't know. But Jean and Aaron's banter starting to come back to normal like it was in season 1 was a lot of fun towards the end of this season. I liked it. The Warrior crew, I call them Barb. We have Beast Titan, Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt. They're Barb. They're the Barb crew. I really wanted more of them in this season, part 1, but I'm fine with it because I know part 2, we're going to Shiganshina. It's all going to involve them, so there's no escaping them now. They are literally waiting for us to arrive. They are rolling out the red carpet, the carpet of blood, literally for our crew to come in. So I'm not going to complain because I know that by the end of season 3, part 2, I'm probably going to be like, it's going to be like that meme from It's Always Sunny where it's the picture of that guy and everybody's like, I've had enough of this person. I feel like it's going to be me and the Beast Titan. I'm going to be like, I've had enough of this guy. Just guessing at this point. And then Pixis, he proved himself. I was like, dude, just coming in clutch, being A rank as hell. I love Pixis. I'm so glad that he led this coup d'etat, proving he's a badass. Y'all, I'm glad I listened to you all because you were right. Pixis, he definitely, as far as characters that exceeded expectations, Historia times 1,000. Historia exceeding expectations like nobody's business. It's kind of insane, right? Aaron exceeding expectations. Did not foresee Aaron having as much character development as he did. It was amazing. Uri exceeded expectations. I honestly thought when we first met Uri, he'd just be this little background exposition character. And then we find out more info about him, his relationship with Kenny and Rod. It's great. Kenny exceeded expectations. Episode 10, case in point. Erwin, Marlo, and Hitch. Grisha. All those characters just exceeding my expectations this season. Erwin getting his backstory. I've waited all series. I am a simp for Erwin at this point, and I am proud of it. I have been questioning Erwin's decisions in season 1. And every time I questioned his decision in season 1, y'all would get on there and be like, well, you're giving Erwin an awful hard time. And I was like, what do you know that I don't know? Now we know, right? Now I know Erwin's backstory, and I'm like, okay, I see your point. So yeah, Erwin exceeded my expectations. Grisha, I gave Grisha 9 kinds of hell, and now I feel bad for it. I felt more bad about giving Rod and Grisha grief this season by the end of it than I have anybody else. But Grisha exceeded my expectations. Episode 11, Keith exceeded expectations, I think, for everybody watching that episode for the first time. And then Marlo and Hitch. I'm glad they're back in the series, and I'm glad they're doing things. Marlo's back in, so we'll talk about him in a second, but exceeded expectations. Which characters changed the most? For me, I would say Zachary. Zachary proving he's a scoundrel. Back in season 1, he was just like in that courtroom, and I thought he was like this stuffy to-do noble, and then you find out that he actually hates nobles and he wants them all to suffer, and it's like, oh, okay. He definitely changed my mindset. But Historia and Aaron. This season 3, part 1 was definitely a season for Levi, Historia, and Aaron. Those 3 characters got so much development and focus. And maybe not so much Levi. Levi, it's more with him and Kenny. Levi's the more family angle with Kenny and Mikasa. But Aaron and Historia definitely got the most development in this season. And it's great. I'm glad that we've gotten that because I feel like it's important going forward. Characters I want to see more of. I want to see more of Levi and Erwin together before I think Erwin's going to die. Yep, I want to see more Erwin and Levi moments. I want to see it. I want to see more Jean and Armin. I want to see, they started working together more in this episode and they've been constantly shown together. So I want to see more of that. I want to see more Historia. I don't think we're going to see Historia in part 2 very much. I think we're going to rarely see her because she's stuck at the castle. I feel like part 2 is mainly going to be at Shiganshina. It's going to be like season 2, like the battle's going to take place like most of the season. It's only 10 episodes. And I say that it's only 10 episodes. It's 10 episodes. But if you take into account, maybe episode 10 will be like the resolution episode and episode 1 setting things up. I just feel like most of it's going to be taking place at Shiganshina, and Historia's not going to be a part of that. Unless we cut back to her at the capital or whatever and we find out what's going on while things are happening. And then Aaron, Ymir, where is Ymir? That's probably one of my biggest concerns this episode. Is Ymir safe? Where the hell is she? Do they have her tied up somewhere? Do they have her locked up underground? Like, do they have Ymir in the basement? Is Ymir in the basement? Who knows? The fact that Ymir was not with Reiner and Bertolt on top of the wall, the fact that she wasn't there with the training with the Beast Titan, I really get bad vibes, the fact that we don't see Ymir, and I don't like it. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see her like at the beginning of episode 13, and that would be great. Because I get bad vibes when I don't see her in this. Because she's such a big presence that when you don't see her, it's concerning. Ugh. As far as who is safe and who's being replaced, I don't think anybody's being replaced necessarily. Marlo is safe for now, but I worry about Marlo. I get either one way or the other vibes with Marlo. Marlo is either going to become Marco 2.0. We had the rule of Mars. Marco, Marcel, Marlo. I feel like Marlo is either going to become like Marco and be a character that we really get fond of and we really think a lot of. And I do think a lot of Marlo. He's like a big cinnamon bun. And he's so pure, like Marco was. And I feel like either one of two things are going to happen. Either Marlo is going to go down the Marco route and we're going to really start to feel for him. And we've had a lot of screen time with him and Jean together. Him and Jean had that big thing in episode 4, the trust episode. Him and Jean were having a lot of discussions in episodes 10, 11, and 12. I'm like, especially in episodes 11 and 12, I'm like, are we setting Marlo up to be like Marco 2.0 and Jean's going to get attached to him? We're all going to get attached to him and then Marlo's going to die and it's going to be sad as hell. Because I feel like Marlo is one of those characters that's expendable. He's a main character. He's not one of like the OG trios, but he's a main character that we could have die and it be impactful, right? And then Hitch is back at the Capitol. And what if they go back to the Capitol and have to tell them that he died? How will she react? I just feel like they're setting Marlo up, especially separating Marlo and Hitch. I feel like they're setting Marlo up to die. Either he's going to die and it's going to be really tragic and sad and Hitch is going to be devastated and it's going to be this big thing. Or Marlo is going to be like a hero and he's going to take out like one of the Titans. Like he's going to do something big. Either Marlo is going to do something big or he's going to do something big and die or he's going to die. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Marlo. I feel like he's safe for now, but I don't know. Erwin has death flags. I've said that this entire recap. Erwin, I think, is going to die. I thought I was feeling really good in episode 5. I'm like, okay, Erwin's great. He's living. And then episode 12, I was like, well, he did. Erwin is, again, we're talking about the ties to the old worlds. Kenny was a tie to the old world. He was a tie to Uri and the old world before Historia became queen. Hannes was a tie to the old world. Keith is still alive, but Keith has been a tie to the old world. Grisha and Carla, they're both dead. The government's out. Rod Reese was a tie to the old world. He's dead. I feel like Erwin, even though Erwin is the modern, current Captain Commander, and he's very much representative of the future, Erwin is also that tie back, right, to the past as well. And so I feel like Erwin is also like the heart and soul of the Survey Corps. And what more tragic way can we deal a crushing blow to the Survey Corps than killing its captain? And I know that Erwin said Hanji would take his place. I know he did. And Hanji is great, but Hanji is also not Erwin. And I'm like, I just get the vibes that he's going to die. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know the circumstance, but I feel like by episode 22, he's going to die. And it's going to be heartbreaking and I'm going to be crushed. So I'm trying not to think about it too much. As you can tell in this recap, I'm trying not to let it consume my every waking thought, but I just feel like Erwin's not going to make it. Historia. Is Historia going to be a target while they're all gone? Because the Survey Corps and their main defense, the government has been overthrown. So most of the military police are imprisoned, right? So there's a good chance Historia could be targeted. I don't like that. So while all this is happening at Shiganshina, there's a good chance that Historia is going to be targeted, and I don't like it. So is she safe? I guess she is, but I don't know. And then as far as other characters being safe, I still think that Aaron, Mikasa, and Armin are going to be safe. Levi, I got lots of concerns about. I want to say Levi is going to be safe, but that serum concerns me. It's like a MacGuffin that I don't get good vibes from. I'm nervous about it. And I'm nervous for Jean. I want Jean to stay safe. As always, he's our king. But I worry about Jean too, especially because Isayama's been giving him some prominence in the story. I'm like, Jean's another character that I feel like a major character is going to die in part 2. Like a major character. And you could say it's Erwin. You could say it's Marlo. I'm worried about Jean. I'm worried about Connie and Sasha. I really am. I'm really worried about Connie. I think of all of them, I'm worried about, I think, Erwin and Connie the most. And Marlo. I mean, Marlo could die very well. But I think Erwin and Connie worry me the most because Erwin's death almost seems like it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But Connie could be like a surprise death because we don't see it coming. But Connie has had a lot of little subtle foreshadowings and little tiny red death flags pop up. Like him saying he was going to confront Reiner and Bertolt back in season 2, and then he did. But him saying that he has an agenda against the Beast Titan. I'm like, oh, honey, Connie, you ain't doing nothing against the Beast Titan. The Beast Titan will kill you. That's what worries me. I feel like Connie is going to see the Beast Titan and be like, why did you do this to my family? And the Beast Titan's going to give some snarky remark, because that Beast Titan, he just looks like he is his voice actor is freaking Dio from JoJo's, and he's Adam from Skate. His voice actor, they picked him to be the voice actor for a reason. You pick Aaron's voice actor for a reason. You pick the Beast Titans for a reason. That voice actor was chosen to give some kind of delivery and some kind of moment. He's been really bored so far, but nah. You don't pick a voice actor like that to play a character like that and not go crazy, right? So I feel like that they're just setting Connie up to have this confrontation with the Beast Titan, and I can see the Beast Titan killing him. Just to prove a point, just to be like, look how easy you all can fall. And just be like, that's it. And they take out Connie. I don't want it to happen. I don't. But in my head, I'm thinking of the worst case scenarios. And the worst case scenarios are that Erwin dies, and that Connie or Jean die, and that Marlo dies. Like, I feel like this season, we got really lucky in season 2. We didn't have a lot of deaths. All the deaths we had were like Survey Corps members, but they weren't main members. Hannes was like the biggest death we had in season 2 that I was like, okay, all right, fine. But that was like the big one, right? There wasn't any main character deaths. And in part 1, we didn't have any main character deaths other than like Kenny and Uri, right? And then obviously Grisha, we find out. But they weren't main characters. So I feel like now's the time. If Isiam was going to be cruel and test us all, now's the time. And I'm like, I'm dreading it. I'm honestly dreading it, because I've not, the most emotional I've gotten in this series so far has been in the last part of this season, when the stuff with Erwin and Levi, the stuff with Keith, the stuff with Kenny, that's been the most emotional stuff so far. And I've not cried in Attack on Titan. I've been too hyped up on adrenaline to cry, to be honest. I feel like I won't cry in this series because I'm too hyped up, right? It'll be like an afterthought. But, oh, it's going to be devastating. If one of these characters dies, it's going to hurt. And I'm not ready for it. So yeah. I've talked for nearly 3.5 hours. I'm glad I decided to split up this recap. Y'all convinced me to, because it was needed. It was needed. So, this is all I got left. My final toast is to my sanity, because y'all have told me, you're like, oh, part 1's pretty fun. Part 1 has been insane. So if y'all are telling me that part 2 and season 4 are going to get wilder than this, I'm going to need much more of this. I'm going to need a lot of wine to get me through part 2. I don't know. I say that. I probably won't. I probably will. But okay, my last part here as we round out this video, I had predictions and questions remaining. Well, predictions are I'm going to need therapy. No. But I'm probably going to need your support as commenters. I will say this, please. Y'all have been amazing. You all have been so wonderful. So wonderful. I can only beg you, as we move into the conclusion, I talk about my final thoughts and my questions remaining and my predictions for season 3, part 2. You all have been, I am humbled and so grateful that y'all haven't spoiled me. I don't know how I've done it, but I've made it this far. I'm so close, y'all. I'm so close. I don't want to be spoiled. So I'm going to ask you all, I'm probably going to have to watch ahead. I'm going to ask you all for your humblest forgiveness, but I am going to have to watch ahead in this season, part 2, because I know what's going to happen. I know somebody in the comments is going to be like, well, when this happens, I'm like, no! So I'm asking you all to please help me help myself to self-moderate. And then when we get to moments after they happen, then we can go crazy. We can talk all we want about them. It's like, yes. But I know all I've heard is that shit goes down in part 2. And so I'm going to have to watch ahead. So if I don't address your comments, like what I like to do is I like to see a comment like the weird pianist and Christopher Peterson, like and Nathalie, like all of your comments, everybody's Algum, everybody, all your comments. I love to see them and remark about them in the reactions, because you guys bring up so many good points and I like to talk about them. but it's probably going to be, if you mention something in episode 13 and I don't mention it until episode 16, it is nothing against you. I just have to watch ahead for spoilers. And plus, the way that it works out is that we are going to start 2022 with me ending part 2. So me getting into season 4 right as season 4 part 2 comes out. It's all, the timing is perfect. It's going to be crazy. So I want to watch ahead so that I can also prep with the OVAs, so I can prep the recap video. It's going to be wild. I'm probably not going to do the recap video until we get super close. But yeah, and I'll probably put something out on Patreon. We'll just see. But it's going to be wild. Basically, there was a poll on Patreon. I talked about it in episode 12. I'm going to watch episode 22. The season finales have always fallen on a Tuesday. It's just been the way that it works out. It's an even number, so it just works out that way. But episode 22 is going to come out on a Tuesday. And then that Wednesday, I'm going to watch the Lost Girls OVAs with Annie, the 2 ones for Annie's. And then on Thursday, I'm going to show the Lost Girls OVA with Mikasa. And then on Friday, it's going to be the recap review and RIP for season 3, part 2. And then on that Saturday is going to be the start of season 4. Oh my God, that Titan week is going to be insane. We're going to kick off 2022 with a bang, baby. It's going to be wild. And so I'm going to have to watch ahead so I can prep, because I want that Titan week to be a lot of fun. And I know I just sat here and talked to y'all. I brought out Whiteboard-kun, but I have ideas for the season 3 part 2 recap. I have ideas, and I want to make that a big giant recap before season 4 starts. And so I'm going to have to record ahead so that I can get the time to organize all of that. I may have to record multiple days to do it. I'm sure I will. But I did 2 hours for the discussion for episode 12 of this last season 3 part 1, and all of y'all have been like, oh, well, you'll be in the 2-hour discussion period for most of season 3 part 2, and I'm like, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to prep. So thank you for not spoiling me. Please don't spoil me for the second part of the season. Don't tell me your favorite episodes yet until after they happen. But I am going to probably have to watch ahead just so I can be prepared. Fun times. So with that being said, I am going to wait until after episode 18 to watch the post-credit scene from this last episode 12, because that's what I was told to do by all of you on Patreon. And also all of you in the comment section told me to wait and not watch the OP for season 3 part 2 until after episode 18. So I'm going to wait and do that, which is nice because that'll give me episodes 19, 20, 21, and 22 to break it down. So that still gives me 4 episodes to watch it. It's fine. I'm still going to watch the ED. Nobody told me the ED was unwatchable, so we're going to go with that. But questions I have going into part 2 of season 3. The questions I still have. They're not very long. I've kind of narrowed down my questions so far. Now, by the time I watch part 2, it's probably going to expand again. But here are my questions I still have. Why are there Titans within the walls? Where'd they come from? What's their purpose? Are they all Titan shifters? Are they just dumb Titans? I know we've had a lot of speculation, and some of you in the comments will be like, well, if you think about it, and I'm like, I have thought about it, but I want Isayama to confirm it. I feel like Isayama is masterful in storytelling, and when he wants you to be confirmed about something, he confirms it. So I want him to confirm in the story itself why the Titans are there, how they got there, etc. There has to be more to it than just the founding Titan create the walls. There has to be more to the story. I want the full picture, so I'm waiting on that. Is the abandoned town by the sea from season 2 ED, is that the Titans' hometown? I want confirmation on that. That's my hypothesis. I want confirmation. Will we get to see the Titan shifters that Bertolt, Annie, and Reiner ate? Will we get to see who those were? Will we get a flashback? We've gotten flashbacks with Grisha so far. We've gotten flashbacks with Frida so far, and with Uri, with our other Titan shifters. So I want to see Bertolt, Reiner, and Annie flashbacks. I want to see that. Will we ever go back to Annie? Is she gone from the story? I know there's the OVAs about her, but I'm missing Annie. I really am. I really want to see her. And so I'm constantly asking with each episode, when are we going to see Annie again? You know, maybe never. Who knows? What were the powers of Marcel and how has it affected Ymir? So a lot of you commented that when Ymir ate Marcel, her teeth became sharp and she got claws. I noticed that too, but I didn't know what to think about it. So I was like, so I'm curious to know what Marcel was, what his Titan shifter powers were. Curious about that. Will Eren ever confront the founding Titan in his mind? Why does it have to be a Reese that inherits the power? I just want Isayama to confirm it. I'm like, will Eren ever confront the Founding Titan since he has the power inside of him? Will he ever confront it? Like, will he get knocked unconscious and confront the power? Can Historia make him confront the power? I don't know. By touching him? I don't know. Why does it have to be a Reese that inherits the power? I want Isayama to confirm this. So I'm waiting for that. How will Eren get to the sea like he was at the start of the season? What are the circumstances? That one opening scene, it sparks so many mysteries, and I'm like, I'm still thinking about it. It's in the back of my brain. I'm like, okay, we're eventually going to tie back around to that moment, and so I need to know the circumstances, which hopefully we'll find out. More information on the serum, please. I know that everybody speculates in the comments, and they're like, well, it's actually like this, and I'm like, I just want Isayama to confirm it in the show, and so I'm waiting for that moment to happen. When did Grisha become a Titan Shifter? Where did he originally come from? Why couldn't he remember, or was it all an act? Did he run away from the Titan Shifters? What's in the basement? I feel like that's been the question throughout this entire series, is what's in the basement? And so, yeah, just waiting on it. So I feel like those answers are going to come to me in part 2, or at the very least, they're going to come in season 4. So it's just a matter of time. Isayama urges you to have patience in this series. And that's something I've noticed, especially in this season. We had so many callbacks to season 1 and so many moments that I was like, oh, now that makes more sense. Like the thing with Keith sabotaging the belt. Here was the thing. I talked to somebody in the comments. I was like, Keith sabotaging the belt makes so much more sense now, because when Eren was struggling in episode 3 with that, I kept thinking, at the last minute, when Eren was at his lowest point, thinking he wasn't special and couldn't do it, that's when Keith revealed, like, oh, hey, let me see your belt. Wow, it was sabotaged. Did you know that? And at the time, I was like, that's so coincidental that Keith just randomly figured that out, that he just knew to check the belt. And now it makes sense, because Keith is the one that sabotaged it. Of course he would know to check the belt. He's the one that messed it up. So Isayama urges us as the audience members to have patience. It's easy for us to run into a scenario and instantly think something about a character. Isayama has proved that time and time again in this series, that you think you know somebody, you think you know the full picture, and then one tiny detail can change your entire context, and it can change the entire perspective. So Isayama, it's like this season he warned us. He's like, look, we're about to get into some morally gray stuff going on. So you should have patience and just wait till the full picture comes out. And it's like, okay, all right. So I'm going in with that mentality. So my predictions for season 3 going into this season are, we're going to obviously have a battle with the Beast Titan, Reiner and Bertolt. That's going to happen. It's been set up the last several episodes. Shiganshina is where it's going to happen at. We know Bertolt, Reiner, and the Beast Titan are going to be involved. Probably other Titans are going to be involved too. They're going to call in the whole gang. Like the dumb putty Titans, they're going to come in too. I feel like we're going to find out what happened with Ymir, whether she's fighting or not. I feel like that's going to come to light. We're finally going to get to the basement, I feel. That info's going to happen. It's probably going to be at the end of the season, but it's going to happen. I predict that either Marlowe is going to die or he's going to kill one of the Titan Shifters. Now the question is Marlowe going to take the Titan Shifter powers, or is he just going to kill him outright? Because that could happen. It could be that one of the Titan Shifters, they don't get eaten, they just get killed, and the Titan powers don't go to anybody. That could be the case, right? So that's the ideal. The ideal is that we do kill these Titan Shifters and their powers are just null and void, right? So I think Marlowe's either going to die, or he could potentially be one of the causing factors of one of these Titan Shifters dying. I talked in season 2 that Bertolt is our biggest threat. I mean, the Beast Titan is a pretty big threat now too, now that we've seen what he can do to Reiner. But I feel like Bertolt being the Colossal Titan is huge. And if humanity is gonna deal a crushing blow to the Titan Shifters, then Bertolt needs to go. So I feel like that's gonna happen at some point or another. We're gonna lose people. I feel like one of the main characters are gonna die. Maybe it's Connie, maybe it's Erwin, maybe it's Marlowe. Hopefully it's not Jean. One of them's going to die. We're going to lose more people. I feel like most of the Survey Corps is going to die, especially the nameless ones. Like, Moblit could die. I don't know. I just don't know. I feel like one of the Titan Shifters is going to die or transfer the power. I feel like either that serum is going to come into play. I feel like Levi's going to use it. They talked too much about it in this season. In episode 12, they talked too much about that damn serum for it not to be used. I feel like it's going to be used either by Levi or by the Titan shifters. That Titan serum is going to get used. We just don't know how. But I feel in my gut that one of the Titan shifters is going to die and the power is going to transfer to someone else. We just don't know who. Is Aaron going to eat all the Titan shifters and just gain all the powers for himself? We don't know. We don't know. Marco's, it's been commented on throughout the series. They're like, yeah, Marco's the gift that keeps on giving. Yay. I feel like I commented in season 2, we had that flashback with Annie, Reiner, Bertel, and Marco getting eaten in episode 13 from season 1. So I feel like Marco's going to come up one more time, and then we're going to find out what happened. I feel like Marco needs to come up one more time. It's going to tie back around somehow. Isayama, it's that foreshadowing. Isayama was telling us we haven't seen the full picture yet. And so there's parts of the full picture with Marco we haven't seen yet. And he's going to show it to us either in this second part or in season 4. And I'm thinking it's going to be in this part, but I don't know. And then here's my question in all of this. In this prediction, is Wall Maria going to get plugged up? Is Aaron going to achieve his goal? Will Aaron... It looks like Aaron goes beyond the wall, but why? What's the circumstance? Did Armin and Mikasa go with him? Or was it Aaron alone? We don't know. We don't know. I have questions and I have thoughts going into this second part, but other than what I've just told you, my mind is a complete blank. I have no clue what to expect. Other than y'all said it's going to get crazy. It's going to get wild. All the setup and payoffs are going to start happening. That serum's going to come out. I'm not comfortable with it. I am terrified, basically. Season 3, part 1, way back in the end of season 2, y'all were like, well, season 3, part 1 is a fun time. There's lots of exposition and information. And season 3, part 2 is where it goes down. And I was like, I feel like it went down in this season, in part 1. So the fact that y'all think it hasn't, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited. I'm also very fearful. So I urge y'all, please don't spoil me. Help me in the comment section if you can. If you see somebody trying to spread a spoiler, just be polite. Y'all have been the most amazing community. We're so awesome about talking about these episodes without spoilers, and y'all are so nice to each other. I'm like, I feel like we're in a little pocket of the internet where like we can have a decent conversation even when we don't agree on things. Because I know I've disagreed with a lot of people about Rod Reese this season, but I felt like our conversations were at least congenial, and we're like, yeah, we can agree to disagree, but let's talk about this. So I like that. I like having a hearty, healthy discussion, especially since that's kind of the theme of this show. So, yeah, I'm really excited, y'all, to dive into part 2. Nervous, terrified, but excited because I know y'all will be with me and we'll be able to talk about it together. So that's the best part about it, right? That's what makes this fun. So thank you all for helping me go in blind to this series. Please help me watch for spoilers. I'm sorry if I watch ahead and I don't get to your comments in the reactions themselves until later. Forgive me. But I'm so excited for this series and to see what's going to happen next. So with that being said, I'm going to go edit this video and see what all happens. But in the meantime, I hope y'all enjoyed this recap and review. I feel like it was all over the place, but this season there's so much happening. Again, I can talk for 3.5 hours and it's still not enough time. There's still so much we can still talk about. So I'm curious to know your comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you stay safe, take care, have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, technically by the time this airs, I'll see you tomorrow with episode 13 of Attack on Titan Season 3, Part 2. Bye.